Hey guys, tonight we drift under stone arches and into a street that smells like warm bread, tallow smoke, and damp straw. Lanterns swing on hooks, shadows move like slow fish across the cobbles. Somewhere, a lute tries to be brave against the wind. Your jaw aches in a dull, stubborn way, pulses with your steps like it has its own heartbeat. We are visiting old nights and old teeth, and if you try any of these cures at home, you probably wouldn't survive the hygiene. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And please tell me where you're watching from and what time it is for you right now. I love seeing our little map light up. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You step off the main road into a night market. It hums like a hive. Stalls lean on one another, patched with linen and rope. A row of rushlights flickers along a cart. Their flames bend in the wind. They leave little halos of gold on jars and hands. Your feet scuff on the straw that someone tossed to soak up the mud. Dogs nose the trash and retreat, tails like commas. Your tooth picks this moment to apply for the job of town drum. Throb, pause, throb. You breathe through it. The ache is round and steady. Not sharp, not yet. A woman laughs nearby. Then she presses a finger to her cheek and winces. You see it on faces everywhere. That tiny pinch. That small flinch. Mouth pain is a quiet guest. Sits close and stays late. A man calls out about pies. Another offers salted herring wrapped in leaves. A boy shakes a tin and says his master draws teeth quickly and clean. You hear the words slide through the crowd. Teeth drawn. Teeth tugged. Teeth cured. The whispers run ahead of you like they know your path. You swallow and taste iron. Maybe from worry. Maybe from the cut where you bit your lip at dinner. You pause by a stall piled with rolls of soft linen. The vendor pinches a strip and twists it into a little cloud. Lint, that is the word they use. She dips it in warm vinegar and honey, then packs it in a cracked bowl, ready for someone's mouth. She tells you to hold it to the sore tooth. It might ease the fire. It might not, but it gives your hands a job. And it smells kind. A mainstream fact walks by in plain clothes. Many medieval towns ring a curfew bell each night. That bell tells people to cover fires and head home. Tonight is a feast night, though, so the stalls stay late. The watch walks the lanes. Their torches make fat sparks. You catch one in your eye, so bright you blink and see stars. You pass a painted sign. It shows a big white tooth with a face on it. The face looks shocked. You smirk, even as your jaw sulks. A man under the sign grins. He wears a cloak lined with fur that has seen better days. He says he can pull a tooth in the time it takes to say 3 prayers. He rattles a pouch. The metal inside clinks. Tools, you think, or coins he hopes to earn. Because nothing says a fun night out like hot wine and a stranger counting your molars. The smoke of cloves hangs near a spice cellar. Clove oil has bite. People rub it on their gums. It numbs a little and burns a little. The spice seller swears by it. He taps a jar. He swears by many things. You sniff and your eyes water. You tuck the idea away. You also tuck a little strip of lint in your sleeve, just in case. A fringe bit floats in the air like a rumor. A girl tells her friend that her aunt once used a baked onion on a tooth. She pressed it warm against the cheek. The pain ran off like a mouse, her aunt said. Another boy says his gran rubbed a tooth with pig fat. Your face says, please stop. Your tooth says, maybe. You cross into the brighter part of the square. A fiddler is working hard for bread. A brewer ladles ale into cups. A man in a red hat lifts a tankard and toasts good teeth. Everyone laughs. Then someone coughs. Then everyone stops laughing. Life is like that here. Quick turns. Fast quiet. You lean against a wall and feel the cool stone through your sleeve. Cart rattles by. The wheel squeals like a rat. You press your tongue to the loose tooth. It wiggles a tiny bit. You get that cold rush in your belly. Loose is not a good word for a tooth. You breathe again. You can have a slow night. One step at a time. One stall at a time. Your tooth can come with you. Or else. Historians still argue whether people had fewer cavities back then, because sugar was rare, or more trouble because bread was gritty and wore the enamel thin. They also argue about how fast people choose a pull. Some say it was the last step. Some say it was just a quick fix when work could not stop. You look around and see both kinds of faces. The cautious ones. The get-it-done ones. Pain has many voters. You catch sight of a striped pole down a side lane. Red and white. Twists like candy. You know what that means. A barber works there. Barbers often pull teeth as part of their trade. It is a common thing in towns. But the pull is for another hour. You stay with the market. You stay with the lanterns and the little world they draw. A baker brushes crumbs off a board with his forearm. He gives a tiny heel of bread to a stray cat. The cat stares at your mouth like it knows secrets. You tell it to mind its own business. Doesn't. Cats never do. Your tooth throbs again like it agrees. A woman in a blue shawl tells you to chew on a twig. She hands you a little stick of sweet root. Not bad. Tastes faintly of licorice. Tricks your tongue for a moment. You roll it between your teeth and gums. The ache dulls just a shade. Not gone, but kinder. You thank her. She nods like she knew it would help. The night folds another corner down. You listen to the ground. You can hear a smith hammering somewhere near. A baby is crying. A rooster who thinks it is dawn. The sound wraps around your head and turns soft. Your shoulders drop. Your jaw loosens a bit, the way a knot loosens if you breathe near it. You are not fixed, but you are not alone. Hundreds of people stand here, all with little hurts. A sore knee, a stiff neck, a tooth that grumbles. The market accommodates all of it. You pass a man with a tiny brass charm pinned to his hat. He shows a saint with tongs. He taps the charm twice when he smiles. He says it keeps his teeth safe. He says it works better if you also refrain from biting walnuts with your back teeth. You think that second part sounds like the real magic. He winks like he heard you think that. At a corner, a girl with ink-stained fingers writes little notes for people who cannot write. Her candle makes a pool of light on the table. You almost ask her to write a truce between you and your molar. You decide she is too booked for that job. You try a brave face instead. Your tooth is not impressed. A bell rings in the distance. It is softer than before. The stalls start to pack. The boy with the tin makes one last call. Teeth drawn, teeth tugged, teeth fixed. The words fade as the cart wheels creak away. The street widens as people pass by. You stay a moment longer. The night deepens. The lanterns shrink to coins. Your breath fogs and vanishes. You roll the little lint between your fingers and picture the place it might sit. The edge of a tooth. The line of a gum. It is a small, strange comfort, like a tiny pillow for a bit of pain. You tuck your chin into your cloak and start a slow walk. Past the spice smell. Past the last laugh. Past the striped pole that waits in the shadow. The road will bend from the market to the doorway, to the workshop, to the chapel, and back again. You will hear many cures and many claims. For now, you step easily. Lanterns sway. Lint warms your sleeve. Your loose tooth keeps its beat, steady as a drum you carry, but lighter than before because you know the path goes on, and you will not walk it alone. You drift toward the striped pole you spotted earlier. Red spirals with white. It looks like a candy cane that grew up rough. Two torches hiss on iron hooks by the door. Their light shakes on the sign. A bowl, a razor, a tooth with little rays around it. Your jaw answers with a low drumbeat. You rub your cheek and step inside. The room is small and bright. There is a bench, a stool, and a shelf of jars. A brazier glows like a tiny sun. Smells like warm tallow, ale, and iron. The barber-surgeon wipes his hands on a cloth and grins. He is quick, neat, and sure. A half cape hangs off his shoulder. He points at the stool. He calls it his chair. You look at the plain box and nod. Luxury. A man already sits on the bench with a sleeve rolled up. The barber ties a strip of linen above the elbow. He pats the skin. He hums. He takes out a small, sharp lancet. It flashes once in the torchlight like a fish. He murmurs about balance. He moves fast, a clean nick. A bowl waits below. The man looks at the far wall and begins to count. The barber smiles and talks about the weather and bread. He talks to the room, not the arm. He knows how to distract. He times the stop with soft pressure and fresh linen. He wraps the elbow snug and neat. He likes the words snug and neat. He says them a lot. He says his cuts are clean and his knots are tidy. He says tidy heals faster. Your jaw rolls its eyes. A mainstream fact rests on the wall. That striped pole is not a joke. The red stands for blood. The white stands for a bandage. Some shops hang a brass bowl near the pole. People say it remembers old bowls that caught drips or held leeches. The pole outside pulls you in. The pole inside is a staff that the patient once gripped to make veins rise. It is odd and blunt, but true. The barber taps the pole as if it were a friend. He rinses his lancet in wine. The wine hisses on the metal. He says it keeps the edge honest. Historians still debate whether most barbers routinely cleaned their tools, or only when someone was watching. He is the kind who likes a little show. He swirls the wine like he is tasting it. You smile. Your tooth does not. A woman with a swollen cheek comes in. She keeps one hand on her jaw. Her eyes are bright with tiredness. The barber lifts her chin. He touches the puffy place with his cool finger. He warms a small blade over the brazier. He blows on it. He lets her grip the pole. He tells a joke about donkeys and apples that has no ending, but it still makes her snort anyway. He counts to 3. He nods on 2. He is done by 3. He presses with clean lint. Not your lint, his. He tells her to spit and rest. He gives her a sip of ale. She says the world is softer now. He says, of course. He looks at you like, see? You look back like, maybe. A fringe tidbit hangs by the door. A short string of old teeth dangles there, pale as river shells. He calls them proofs. He says people like to see what's left in other mouths. You do not. He says he wipes them and saves them. He swears a bag of them brings luck. You hope he means luck for him, not for his next tool. He turns to the shelf and lifts a small jar. Clove floats up again. He dips a cloth in it and hands it to a young boy who has been waiting, small as a stool and twice as quiet. The boy presses the cloth to his gum and blinks fast. The barber says, "Bite the cloth and let your mind wander somewhere else." He sets a timer with his mouth. He sings a long rhyme. It sounds like a song he learned when he was too little for knives. Then a broad-shouldered farmer takes the stool. He has a face like a door. Good hinges. Bad lock. He opens wide. The barber peers in. He presses with a wooden probe. He finds the molar by the way it dodges. You feel that soft cold in your belly again. You know that tiny dance. The barber nods. He calls the tooth stubborn. He reaches for his roll of tools. You do not stare at the metal. You look at the barber's hands instead. They are steady. He wraps a cloth around the farmer's head and under the chin. He tucks the ends under his own foot. He does not make it look scary. He makes it look like tying a sack. The farmer grunts. He reaches for the pole and squeezes until his knuckles go pale. The barber sets an iron beak against the tooth. He breathes once. He wiggles. He levers. He does not rush. He hums the same silly song. He says, "Clean and quick, friend." The farmer's foot taps the floor like a cricket. The barber tilts, then turns, then gives a short pull. The sound is not loud. It is like a cork if a cork came with a groan. The barber steps back and holds up what is now not a tooth, but a small, pale pebble with roots like threads. He swishes it in the bowl. He drops it into a jar like a prize. The farmer blinks. He pats his cheek. He laughs like a horse snorting in his chest. It is a relief shaped like noise. The barber stuffs a little ball of lint into the socket and tells the farmer to bite. He ties a neat band. He says, "No hot stew tonight." He says, "No pipe." He says, "Salt water if you can spare it." He says, "Come back if the drum comes back." He lets the farmer take one of the proofs to nail on a beam at home. The farmer says it will keep wolves from the door. You are pretty sure wolves cannot read teeth, but you do not argue. You see the room a different way now. It is a place for fast choices, a place for steady hands, a place where pain trades time for calm. Your own jaw is jealous. It begs for the same bargain. You touch your sleeve. The lint you stole is there, warm and small. You are not ready to sit, not yet. You want to learn a bit more first. You want to see how he reads faces and mouths. He gives a shave to a man with a laugh like a bell. He takes a wart off a thumb for a baker who looks bored. He sets a splinter free from a boy's heel with a whisper, a wink, and a tiny blade. He is part barber, part surgeon, part uncle. He holds his tools like pens and writes health in small lines. He brags, but it is gentle bragging. He says he can pull a tooth in one prayer if it is honest, two if it lies. He thinks he can shave a beard so close it runs for help. He says his bandages make even the fussy saints smile. You smile too. You can't help it. Salespeople have been the same since the beginning of time. Joke 1. He calls his stool the throne of mercy. Joke 2. He tells a boy he can shave a goose if the goose pays. Joke 3. He claims he is so fast that your pain will need a map to find you. A simple fact stays by your side. In many towns, if you needed a tooth out, this is where you came. A barber-surgeon was the person who did it. Not a fancy doctor, not a prince. A worker with clean cloth, a sharp iron, and a steady song. Sometimes they traveled. Sometimes they waited under a pole like this and let word come to them. A man in the corner asks about fees. The barber answers with a hand wave and a number that shifts like light on water. He says he is fair. He says he takes eggs or coins. He says he does not take complaints. The room laughs because that is the kind of joke you laugh at when the knife is not near you. You step near the door to breathe the cool air and watch the torches throw gold across the street. The night air feels wide. The market sounds fade and fill again like a tide. A cat whines around the pole and rubs its cheek where yours aches. You tell them you are fine. It does not believe you. It never does. Outside, the pole looks taller. The red looks darker, the white looks like soft bread. You think about the bowl and the bandages and the way steady hands change a night. You think about speed and clean cuts. You think about your own stubborn molar, sitting like a king behind its wall. You are not quite ready to bow. Not yet. You slip your tongue against it, slow and light, and let the ache be a steady lantern rather than a loud drum. The torches hiss and spit tiny stars. The barber's laugh carries out to the lane. Somewhere down the way, someone is going to light another lantern. You decide to follow that glow and keep moving. You follow a gray ribbon of smoke to a narrow door. It smells sharp and strange. Not meat, not bread. It smells like leaves, pepper, and something a little sleepy. A small crowd leans in. A woman with a scarf tied tight is in charge. She has kind eyes and a voice like a kettle simmering. She points at a bowl of warm coals. She says, "Tooth worms hate this." Your jaw answers with its slow drum. The woman notices the way you hold your cheek. She nods like she has seen 1,000 faces like yours. She tells you a story. It is an old one. She says tiny worms live in bad teeth. They bite and gnaw. They burrow for warmth like mice in grain. When you drink ale, they dance. When you eat sweets, they sing. When you try to sleep, they throw a party and do not invite you. A mainstream fact stands here in plain view. Many people in these centuries truly believed in toothworms. The idea is not a joke in town talk. It shows up in learned books and in kitchen chatter. It is old, too. Old stones from far lands tell of a worm that begs for food and nests in teeth. You feel the story press into you. It is neat and straightforward. Pain needs a face. The worm gives it one. The wise woman sprinkles tiny seeds on a bit of iron set over the coals. They pop and spit. They smell bitter, like a stew that has gone sour. She calls them henbane seeds. She says the smoke makes the worm run. She lifts a hollow goose quill. She asks you to lean close. She places the wide end near your mouth and aims the thin end so smoke spills onto your sore tooth. You breathe gently. The smoke is not hot. It is warm and clingy. It tastes like pepper and wild grass. Your lip tingles. Your gum goes a little numb, like it fell asleep for a blink. The seeds crackle again. The woman nods. She says, "Hear that? Worms are complaining." You smile with half your mouth. You are not sure, but the idea is a cozy blanket for your thoughts. Historians still debate whether the worm was intended as a literal, small creature or a metaphorical representation of decay and pain. They also wonder if the smoke cure was more show than science, or a real help because it numbed you. You tilt your head and find the answer your own way. The pain softens a step. Not gone, but a nice step. She sets the quill aside and takes a thin horsehair from a box. She twists it on a stick, then flicks it near your molar, just at the edge of the gum. Tickles. She draws it out with a flourish. On the end is a black speck and a curled thread. She holds it up. The crowd sighs. Someone whispers, "There it is." Your eyes narrow. You think it looks like a burnt seed skin. You do not spoil her trick. Magic is part cure here, and so is belief. She opens a pouch of cloves and crushes a bud with a spoon. The smell wakes up your nose. Do you remember the spice stall back in the square? She rubs a little clove oil on a rag and touches it to your gum. The sting is bright and quick. Then the ache drops a level, the way sound drops when you close a door. She smiles. She says, "Worms hate cloves." You think pain hates cloves, too. She shows you a small scroll of lead. It is rolled up tight like a secret. She says there are words in it. Words to tell the worm to take a long walk. She will sell it for 2 eggs or 1 egg and a good joke. You offer the joke. She says, "Fine." You say, "Tell the worm rent is due." She laughs and taps the scroll. Joke 1. Rent is never due on a worm. You both know that. A fringe tidbit flutters in with her next tip. She says a fox tooth on a string, worn under your shirt, keeps worms out of your mouth. She says a mouse tooth works, too, but only if you do not tell anyone it is a mouse tooth. You nod as if you will try the fox. You will not, but it is nice to have options. The woman has a little charm, she whispers. She says the line under her breath and lets you join in. Little worm, leave the tooth and stay gone. The words are simple. You feel a bit silly. You also feel your jaw relax while you speak. It is like a trick your mind plays on your muscles. You do not mind. If a rhyme eases a night, you will sing all the rhymes. She tells you to sit with the smoke again. She sprinkles more seeds. They pop like tiny drums. She says the sound is the worm trying to keep its grip. She moves the quill, and the smoke wraps your sore tooth like a scarf. You close your eyes. Your breath slows. For a moment, your jaw stops shouting and whispers instead. A boy at the door says his uncle once lit a wax taper and held it close to a tooth. He said the worm crawled toward the light. He said he caught it in a spoon. The room hums with interest. The woman lifts her chin. She says, "Be careful with hot wax." You file that under no thank you. Joke 2. You picture yourself at midnight, fishing in your own mouth with a spoon. That is a hobby nobody needs. A simple fact sits down next to you. Many guides from these old days suggest this very smoke. Not just here, far away too. Seeds on iron. Smoke through a hollow reed oils for the gums. People copy the steps in neat handwriting. They pass them hand to hand. They believe strongly. They also enjoy activities they can do at home with just a bowl, a coal, and a seed. The woman shows you a jar of proofs. It is full of dark threads and tiny curls, saved from many nights like this. She says they are worms. You have a quiet thought. Sometimes those threads are bits of plant or cloth. Sometimes they are pieces of the tool. Sometimes they are real but not worms. Perhaps they are small clots or strips from the sore gum. She does not need your thought. Her jar helps her help people. You let the jar be. She gives you a twig, a sweet root like the one the woman in the market shared. Chew it when the drum gets loud, she says. And no cold river water tonight. She says worms love a cold shock. You promise to be warm and boring. You touch your cheek and feel the skin let go a little more. You stand to make room for the next month. You tuck the lead scroll into your pouch. It feels heavy for a thing that holds only words. You exhale and taste a faint clove. Your jaw is quieter. Not silent, quieter. On the wall, you notice a small drawing. It shows a tiny serpent curled in a tooth. It looks cozy, as if they rented that space with a deposit and got lucky with the neighbors. You shake your head. Joke 3. You imagine writing the worm a polite eviction notice with a wax seal and a deadline. At the door, the woman stops you with a hand on your sleeve. She says, "If the drum returns, try steam with mint. Try a warm cloth. Try patience." She smiles at the last word. You carry it with you. Patience is a tool just like her quill. Outside, the night is cooler. The torches near the striped pole are far now. The street here is quiet. A cat slips by and gives you that same suspicious look. You tell it you are trying a truce with your molar. It blinks like a judge and moves on. Historians still debate whether people relied on worm talk because it made fear more manageable or because they genuinely saw proof in jars like that. They also say whether the smoke drove out anything or just soothed the nerves until a better moment arrived. You listen to your own mouth. You hear less of a drum. You hear more of your steps. That is enough for this hour. You walk again, slow and calm. The smoke smell trails you like a scarf. Somewhere nearby, coals crackle and seeds pop. Somewhere else, someone laughs, then hisses at a sudden twinge. You know both sounds now. You carry a slight numbness, a little rhyme, and a tiny lead promise. And you have the thought that even a bad idea can hide a good trick. If a worm is not real, the smoke still helps. If a worm is real, well, you just told it to move out. Either way, your night gets softer. You follow the path to a stone gate where ivy climbs like sleepy green cats. A small hatch opens. A face appears in candlelight. The porter tilts his head when he sees your hand on your cheek. He slides the bar and the door sighs. You step inside the hush. The cloister wraps you like a cool cloak. Arches make a square around a garden. Gravel crunches softly under your shoes. The air smells of mint, damp earth, and beeswax. A bell rings low and far, like a cow calling its calf. Robes whisper by. Sandals tap like raindrops. Your jaw keeps its steady drum but does not shout. The quiet here teaches its manners. You pause by the herb beds. Labels sit on little sticks, neat and kind. Sage, mint, yarrow, valerian, rosemary. A brother kneels and pinches a sprig. He rubs the oil between finger and thumb, then brings it to his nose. He nods like the leaf passed a test. He smiles at you the way someone does when they see a friend in pain. He points you toward a door with a cross carved above it. Infirmary. Inside, the light is honey and soft. Beeswax candles pool gold on stone. Pot simmers. It smells of vinegar, clove, and something green. Straw pallets line the wall, each with a folded blanket and a small wooden cup. A mortar and pestle sit on a table like two old friends. A bowl of clean lint waits, white as new snow. You pat your sleeve and greet the lint you took earlier. It acts innocently. Brother Thomas meets you with a nod. He is round in the shoulders and square in the jaw, like a door that always closes true. He moves slowly, but his slowness has purpose. He does not rush. He listens. He asks where it hurts. You point. He taps the light with a wooden probe. You feel the steady ache. He nods. A mainstream fact sits beside him, plain as the bench. Many monasteries maintain an infirmary similar to this. The rule expects care for the sick. There is an infirmer whose work is to tend bodies with herbs, prayer, and scents. Monks keep physic gardens. They copy books about plants and cures. Some famous ones write their own notes about health. The words travel when people do. Brother Thomas leads you to the table. He drops sage and mint in the mortar. He adds a pinch of salt. He pours a ribbon of warmed wine and a spoon of honey. He grinds. The pestle thumps a slow beat. He hums low like a big bumblebee. He says this rinse soothes heat and sweetens breath. He hands you a cup. You swish. The mint lifts your mouth awake. The honey wraps the edges in a soft, velvety texture. The ache takes a half step back. He checks your pulse. He looks at your tongue. He asks what foods exacerbate the pain. You tell him cold river water can start the drum. He nods. He says tonight you are cool and dry. He will not use cooling herbs too much. He will balance with warmth. He winks at the simmering pot. You think of the worm smoke quill. You have been a frequent flyer. He dips clean lint in the warm brew and folds it neatly. He presses it against your cheek from the outside. The warmth sinks in. He tells you to breathe slowly, to count the steps you once took across a field. You remember a field somewhere. It was green. Your jaw listens like a child in a story. A novice bounces in with an armful of mint. He trips, then doesn't. He sets the leaves down and grins at you. He asks if the worms complain yet. You laugh with one corner of your mouth. Joke one. You tell him your worms are on retreat and taking vows of silence. He snorts and runs the leaves through his fingers like coins. A fringe tidbit sits on a shelf and looks like a dare. A small, corked bottle reads, "Urine and salt." Brother Thomas follows your eyes. He shrugs. He says to rinse with it for clean teeth. He says it is old advice. He says you can pass. You pass. Strong pass. He smiles like he knew you would. He takes down a jar of clove buds. You two are old friends now. He shakes one into his palm and crushes it. He dips a cloth into a drop of oil and touches it to your gum. That bright sting comes. Then the slow soft. You tip your head. He nods. He says clove is a faithful helper. It reminds you of the spice stall and the smoke cure, like the night is weaving a basket of little helps. On the far pallet, a young man holds his face and breathes like each breath is a task. His swelling is stiff and shiny under the skin. Brother Thomas washes his hands in warm water. He looks at the mouth. He presses. He listens to the sound that comes back, a tight hum. He gives the young man a mug with poppy and ale. The lips relax. The eyes blur. He sets a warm cloth under the jaw. He says some hurts want patience. He says some hurts want a small cut to let bad water run. He does not rush either choice. Historians still debate whether monasteries treated townsfolk frequently or primarily cared for their own. They also argue whether brothers pulled many teeth or only did so when there was no other path. The records talk in whispers. They tell some stories, but not all of them. From a drawer, Brother Thomas takes a small pair of iron forceps. Simple, clean. He warms them a blink by the brazier and wipes them with wine. He shows them to the young man the way a kind teacher shows a child a spoon. Not a threat, a tool. He places a prayer in the air, short as a breath. He asks for steady hands and soft mercy. He counts. He goes on too. The grip is firm. The movement is sure. It is over faster than fear thinks. The room exhales. He puts soaked lint on the place. He tells the young man to bite, to rest, to sip nothing hot, to be kind to his mouth for a day. He He palms the little pale pebble that is left and drops it in a bowl. He does not hang it on a string. He does not need proofs on a wall. Here, the proof lies in the quiet aftermath. The young man blinks and smiles on one side. Tears track the dust on his face. He looks very young now. Like a minute ago, he was 10. You breathe out when you did not know you were holding your breath. You think of the barbers, snug and neat. You see the same care here, but with silence instead of jokes. Though Brother Thomas does like a small laugh. Joke 2. He pats the mortar and says it fixes everything except a bad hymn. You promise not to test that. On the windowsill, bundles of dried herbs hang upside down. Chamomile, St. John's wort, a few sprigs of something bitter he calls rue. He says the smell of mint keeps mice away from the bread. He says cobwebs, when clean, can help stop a slight bleed. He saves them rolled on little sticks like silk. It is a quirky trick that sounds like a fairy story, but it works for tiny cuts. He does not put them in mouths. He puts them on a finger nick or a scraped knee. He shows you a pouch with a tiny bell clapper. He says a pilgrim left it here, claiming metal from a holy bell calms tooth pain if you touch it to your cheek at dawn. He shrugs. He says faith does many jobs. He says you can try it if you like. You press it to your cheek. It is cool and smooth. Feels like touching a small moon. You close your eyes and count 3 slow breaths. Your jaw approves of the ritual, even if the bell has other plans. He writes your name or a best try at it in a small book with a dull quill. He notes, ache in lower molar, soothed with rinse, clove, warm cloth. He writes like someone keeping a garden. Little rose, small hopes. He gives you a small packet of dried sage. He says to boil and cool it, then hold it in the mouth, but do not swallow if possible. He smiles at, if you can help it. He knows some herbs taste like old socks. You thank him with a slight bow, which you picked up by watching others. He blesses your night. He tells you to sleep with your head a bit high. He says do not bite almonds. Joke 3. You promise to bite only clouds. He approves of that menu. On the way out, the cloister feels warmer. The porter nods again and bars the door behind you. The city air smells louder now, as if someone had turned up a knob. Your pouch holds sage, a little clove, and your lead scroll from the smoky room. Your sleeve still has a bit of lint on it. You are a walking apothecary minus the shelves. Historians still argue whether these quiet rooms slowed the march of pain in towns or offered rest while the body did its own work. They also determine whether prayers are a placebo or a genuine source of power. You leave those questions on the stone like coins. You carry the warm cloth feeling instead. Your jaw is not healed, but it is held. Mercy can be a hand on a cheek, a clean tool, a soft word, and the wisdom to let go when holding on hurts too much. You step back into the lane. The cat from the pole could be the same cat, or a cousin. It judges you kindly tonight. The bell in the tower hums the hour. Your steps find the night's slow beat. The herbs tug their smells after you like sleepy pets. You turn toward the square again, moving the way people do when they have been seen and soothed and still have a little way to go. You turn a corner and find warm light spilling from a small chapel. The door is low. The lintel is smooth from years of handling. The air is filled with beeswax and breath, and a tiny swirl of incense. A rack of candles glows like a field of stars. Your jaw is quieter now, but it still taps its little drum. You step inside and let the hush sit on your shoulders. On the side wall, you see her, a painted saint in red and gold. She holds a pair of tongs. In the tongs is a single white tooth. Her face is calm, like someone who keeps promises. This is Saint Apollonia. Your eyes find the small letters near her feet. Apollonia. People whisper her name when a mouth hurts. You reach for a slim taper. You touch its tip to a steady flame. The wick catches and blooms. You place the candle near the others, and the warm light makes your fingers blush pink. A mainstream fact stands here plain as stone. Across much of medieval Europe, people prayed to Saint Apollonia for relief from toothaches. Her feast day falls in early February, during winter. She is often painted with tongs and a tooth. Chapels carry her image near altars. Medals show her profile. People leave gifts shaped like teeth or little jaws made of wax. You see 2 right now near a small box. 1 tiny molar, 1 neat arc of a smile, both soft and pale. A woman beside you crosses herself. She presses her lips to a little brass medal of the saint. Then she hangs it on a hook with a string. The hook is crowded with many such strings. Some hold metals, some hold little bones of coral, some have simple rings. You remember the lead scroll in your pouch from the smoky room. Here, words live in metal, not in lead. You whisper a small rhyme anyway. Saint Apollonia, sit with me. Make this ache less loud. Your voice sounds like someone you would trust. Historians still debate whether the charms worked by faith alone, through the calm of ritual, or by the way a quiet place allows pain to subside. They also wonder how often people truly got better here, versus feeling brave enough to seek a pull after. The records show candles and thanks, as well as full jars in barber shops. The truth sits somewhere between. At a bench, a seller lays out little amulets on a cloth. He should not sell inside, so he smiles and stays close to the door. He taps each piece with a finger. A small disc shows the saint and a tooth. A tiny pouch holds mint and a pinch of salt. A braid of red thread twists around a tooth-shaped bead. He says the bead is bone from a fish. Could be. Perhaps it is not. He leans in. He says, strong for pain, stronger when blessed. You think of the cat who judges you. You learn from the best. You choose one metal, honest and straightforward, and tuck it next to your lead scroll and your sage. A fringed tidbit sits right on the cloth. A smooth stone with a hole through it. He calls it a thunderstone. He says water that sits with the stone all night makes a tooth calm down by morning. He says lightning made the hole in the stone. You know holes come from waves and time, but the stone is pleasant to touch. It is cool and round, making a good worry pebble. You buy it for one more coin than you meant to. He bows as if you purchased a star. Under a little arch, a painted panel shows the saint again, this time with a calm fire in the background. Someone has pinned a scrap of cloth with a few words near it. For my mother's sleep. You try on the words in your head. You feel them fit. You let them go. The candles click and hiss in tiny ways. The wax runs like slow rivers and makes little lakes on the iron tray. Near the door, a man with careful eyes tends a brazier the size of a soup bowl. He is not part of the chapel. He is more like the barber, but with softer shoes. He bows to the saint each time someone looks at him. He taps the rim of the brazier and lifts a thin iron from the coals. The tip glows orange, then red. He calls this little act Apollonia's fire. He says a hot touch can quiet a nerve. He says it is quick. He says the saint holds your hand while he does it. He says many things. You watch as a brave soul sits on a stool. The man with the iron steadies the jaw with a clean cloth. He appears to have done this before. He breathes with his client. He asks for a sip of ale to take the edge off. He wipes the iron, counts, and brings the hot tip near the sore tooth. There is a tiny hiss, like a drop of rain on a kettle. The person flinches, then relaxes, then holds still. The iron goes back to the coals. The cloth goes on the cheek. The eyes close. The hands unclench. It is over in a blink that feels like an eternity. You feel your own mouth clamp just from watching. You open it again slowly, like a door that sticks in the cold. The helper calls the method a kiss of heat. He says the nerve gets shy and stops talking. He says the pain will stay quiet for a long while. Historians still argue whether this kind of cautery truly reached the nerve enough to help, or if the mind, the burn, and the ale made a team that fooled the ache for a time. They also argue that it was common, or if we make it bigger than it was because the image is so sharp. You think of the barbers snug and neat. This is not that. This is more like a tiny thunderclap, followed by a hush. You weigh it the way you weigh a bad idea that is also a good idea. You measure the fear, the smell of hot iron, the promise of quiet. Your jaw gives a small vote. It wants peace. Your head wants options. Your stomach wants soup and bed. All three want the saint on their side. Joke 1. You picture sending the pain a polite letter. Dear Sir, Saint Apollonia requests your absence. Please vacate the premises by dawn. You snort under your breath. A novice glances at you and grins like he heard the joke without sound. A young mother steps in with a baby. The baby gums a bit of red coral tied to a string. The beads click. The baby's cheeks glow. The mother dips her fingers in holy water and touches the child's lips, then her own. You remember a bit of common sense here. Many people use coral as a teething charm. Many think it wards off the evil eye. It is also complex and smooth, and safe to chew compared to wood. The little one drools like a champion and looks very pleased with life. You light a second taper and set it near the first. Feels like company for a long walk. You whisper a new rhyme because you like the way words and fire lean on each other. Apollonia, steady me. Make my bite a friend. The words are small but true. You do not need a long speech. Your jaw listens. It does not answer with a drum this time. It holds still as if it too is looking at the candles. Outside the door, the seller has found a friend. They trade jokes about teeth and bread that are older than the street. Joke 2. One says his molars quit last winter, so he now drinks stew. The other says he uses his gums for walnuts and his teeth for gossip. You add your own. Joke 3. You say your tooth wants a union and better hours. They clap like you won a prize and offer you a bundle of mint on the house. A small paper, pinned near the door, lists the saint days for the month. You note the date for Apollonia. You imagine this chapel on that day, full of candles and soft faces, each one a little braver. You imagine a pile of wax teeth melting into a big white lake. You imagine the seller with the amulets making a fortune on small courage. You smile. Courage comes in many sizes. Tonight, yours is the size of a taper and a medal and one more quiet step. You pass the brazier again. The iron glows low now. The man wipes it, wraps it, and tucks it into a leather roll. He nods to the saint once more. He offers you a place on the stool, gentle and honest. You think of smoke and clove, of sage and warm cloth, of the barber's song and the monk's hum. You think of snug and neat and quick and clean. You think of kiss of heat. You tell him, not tonight. He bows. He says, you can come back when the drum is louder than the candles. You hope that night stays far. Historians still argue whether people truly believed the saint fixed teeth, or if they came for courage and community and then walked to the striped pole with a steadier heart. They also argue whether the name Apollonia's fire was in people's mouths back then or developed later in stories. You decide nicknames do not mind where they are born so long as they work. You step back into the lane with warm wax on your fingers and a cooler calm in your chest. The metal rests against your palm. The thunderstone sits in your pocket like a quiet egg. The cat from earlier appears, of course. It sniffs the air, curls its tail into a question mark, and decides you look more settled. You tell them you are under new management. Pretends not to care. The night is softer now. Your steps are slow. The ache has not left town, but it speaks in a whisper. The candles burn on in your mind. The saint looks over her shoulder with a promise she seems to keep. You let the street carry you forward, and you promise yourself this. You will choose what to try, one steady thing at a time, with help from hands, from herbs, from faith, and from the small fire you carry inside your own quiet jaw. You follow warm voices and the low clink of cups. A tavern door stands open, throwing gold light on the cobbles. Smoke curls from a hearth. The room smells of malt, roasted onions, and a subtle hint of mint. Your jaw keeps time, softer now but steady. You slip inside. A long table sits beneath a beam hung with bunches of drying herbs. Poppies, brown and papery. Mint, green and brave. Little thorny sprigs of something you do not know. A pitcher of small ale gleams like amber in lamplight. The keeper nods. He has a clean cloth, a heavy ladle, and kind eyes that miss nothing. Beside him stands an apothecary with a wooden box of jars. He looks like a sparrow in human form. Quick, careful, curious. He sees the way your hand rests on your cheek. He tips his head. He points to the bench near the hearth. He says, "Drink." You nod. He pours a small cup of ale. He drips a spoonful of dark syrup from a jar. He stirs with a clean stick. He slides the cup to you. He calls it poppy ale. He says it will take the edge off. He says, "Slow sips, listen to your breath." You lift the cup. The smell is sweet and grassy, like warm hay. You take a sip. The ale is mild and soft. The syrup brings a lazy hush. Your tongue feels thick at the edges, like it's put on a sweater. Your shoulders drop a finger's width. Your tooth slows its drum to a polite tap. The fire crackles and agrees. A mainstream fact sits in the steam between you. People in these centuries use syrups made from poppy to quiet coughs and alleviate pain. Simple cooks call it poppy juice with honey. Physicians write longer names. Taverns will add a spoon to ale if you ask. They call the ale small because it is weak and safe. People drink it every day. Tonight, it is not food. It is helpful. The apothecary lifts another jar. He opens it and lets you sniff. This one bites the air. It doesn't smell enjoyable, like the wind on a cliff. Henbane. He warns you. It is a vigorous plant. Can make minds wander and stomachs flip. can alleviate pain, but it comes at a cost. He taps his own head. Dreams, he says, strange ones, dry mouth, words that do not sit still. He smiles, gentle but precise. You nod like a person who likes their words where they left them. He shows you a root that looks like a tiny person. Mandrake, the shape feels like a secret. He says it is famous for sleep. He also says it is rare and not for a tavern counter. He will not brew that here. He says if you have a wise monk or a trained surgeon, ask them. He is careful with his lines. Historians still debate whether soporific sponges, also known as sleep sponges, were common or rare. Some books describe them, sponges soaked in poppy, henbane, and other sedative plants, then dried, then held to the nose before a hard cut. Some say they worked like a spell. Some say the tales grew taller than the truth. You let the argument pass like a cloud. Your cup is small and your night is long. He lifts a square of linen from his box. It has a faint aroma of wine and herbs. He says some healers wet a cloth with a sleepy brew and lay it on the face. The skin is a little calm. The mind eases. It is not a full sleep. It is fog, enough for a stitch or a fast pull. He tells you again, slow. No hero cups. You give him your best saintly nod. Joke one. You take another sip and whisper, this tastes like bedtime in a boot. The keeper laughs. He says a boot would charge more. On the beam above, a small bunch of cloves makes a dark star. The apothecary crushes one bud on a spoon and lets you smell it. The scent is sharp and warm. You already know this friend. He mixes the smallest drop into a thimble of ale and hands it to you. You hold it in your mouth. Your gum flutters, then numbs. It is a nicer number than the smoke gave. Cleaner. You breathe and let your tongue rest. He points to a cheeky little jar with a painted frog. A fringed tidbit hops out of his mouth with a grin. Some people swear that rubbing a live frog on a sore cheek helps chase away the pain. He says he does not offer frogs. He says his wife would chase him out of the kitchen if he did. You agree with your wife. Around you, voices rise and fall like a tide. A mason with a cracked smile asks for poppy in his ale. A weaver asks for honey and mint. A carter rubs a clove on his tooth and sings a quiet song about oats. It is a gentle room. Pain is here, but it is in company. The hearth holds it like a lap has a cat that does not scratch tonight. The apothecary lifts a small sponge from a stone dish. It smells like wine and sleep. He does not put it near your nose. He lets you see it. He explains, soft and slow. A sponge is soaked in a mixture of poppy and henbane, along with a bit of bile and wine, and then dried, then warmed and dipped again before use. He says this is not for a tavern. It is for a bench with strong friends and a healer who knows the road back from sleep. Historians still debate whether these sponges had more than a sedative effect. They say whether stories of deep sleep are plain talk or pride. You tuck the sponge back in its nest with your eyes. The keeper sets a bowl of warm posset by your elbow. Milk and ale with honey and a pinch of nutmeg. He says it keeps the poppy from kicking your stomach. You take a spoon. The bowl steams like a small cloud. Your jaw likes the heat. Your belly says thank you. You realize you have not thought about food in a while. The ache took that seat. Joke 2. You tell the apothecary that if you drink much more, your tooth will have to write you a note in the morning. He bows and says he sells ink. He lays 3 options on the table without explicitly stating they are options. 1. Numb the edges with clove and poppy and sleep a bit. 2. Try henbane and risk a walk through weird dreams while the pain steps back. 3. Go to the barber now and ask for a quick, sharp pull. He taps the bench. He says each path has a price. Numbness can slide into nausea. Dreams can wander too far. A pull can be a storm and then a blue sky. You hold all 3 like stones in your hand. You feel which one is coldest. A simple fact leans on your shoulder. Strong drink has been a long-standing aid in arduous work. Ale is mild. Wine is stronger. Some surgeons give a man wine, then more wine, then a slice. Some add poppy. Some do not. They all watch the eyes. They all listen to the breath. They all know that sleep can slip and not return. That risk is a line none of them likes to walk. You take one more small sip of poppy ale. You wait. Your jaw hums like a bee behind glass. It is softer. It is also still there. You touch the metal in your pouch. You think of the saint's tongs. You think of the barber's song. You think of the monk's warm cloth. Your hand finds the thunderstone, sits heavy and calm. You roll it in your palm and feel the hole like a tiny door. The apothecary brings out a sprig of valerian. He says some find it smell like old socks, but the sleep it brings is kind. You sniff. Your nose agrees with old socks. He laughs. He says to use only a pinch. He drops a piece into your posset. It barely changes the taste. Your eyelids grow thoughtful. Your head feels like it has a pillow hidden inside it. Joke 3. You eye the henbane jar and tell him, "I'd like numbness, not new pets walking on the walls." He taps the jar and says, "Wise." He sets a small dish of salt by your cup. He says if your stomach turns, lick a pinch. He says step into the night air if your head spins. He says choose now or choose later, but choose with a kind heart for your own body. He is not a priest, but he gives a little blessing as if he were. You feel it land. Historians still debate whether common folk used these sedative drinks frequently or reserved them for special occasions. They say whether barbers kept poppy and henbane at hand or sent people to apothecaries first. They say about strength, dose, and danger. The only person you need to discuss with is the one who lives halfway between your ear and your mouth. That one wants quiet. That one also wants tomorrow. You stand. The room tilts, but only a little. You pay with a coin and a thank you. You promise the keeper you will return with a story, not a scream. He likes that trade. You step back into the night. The air is cool and smells like rain that may or may not come. Your jaw is a whisper instead of a shout. Your mind is not fog, only mist. You look down the lane toward the striped pole. You look up at the soft slice of moon. You let both be. You will choose soon. Numbness, nausea, or a sharp, short yank. For now, you walk easily. You listen to your steps. You carry clove on your breath. You carry poppy in your bones like a small lantern with a thick shade. The cat appears, of course. It tests your ankle with its tail and decides you are safe to follow. You tell it the decision will keep until the next corner. It blinks. You blink back. The night goes on with you. You turn toward a beat that rolls like thunder in a barrel. Drums, laughter. A pipe shrills above the roofs. The lane widens into a fairground lit by torches, and moon flags flap. Sawdust softens the ground. Spits turn. Children run with candied nuts that snap like tiny hail in their mouths. Your cat friend slides under a cart and watches like a small guard. A wagon sits high on its wheels at the center. A stage folds out from its side. A man in a bright coat stands on it. His hat has a feather that argues with the wind. He bows too far and pops back like a spring. He calls himself a master tooth drawer, healer of jaws, friend of saints, an enemy of pain. His helper beats the drum in time with the patter. The crowd claps. Your jaw wakes a little like it wants to be part of the show. On a cloth-covered table, jars shine. Powders, oils, little bones. A ribbon of red paint curls around a bottle that claims to be dragon bone. Another jar holds pale flakes said to be shaved unicorn horn. A third shows a label with 3 words you trust less than geese with swords. Cure for all. You smile without showing teeth. The man sees you. He smiles back, as if you are the very ache he came to conquer. A mainstream fact stands right here under the lamps. Fairs draw traveling healers. Tooth drawers, bone setters, cuppers, sellers of salves and charms. They use music. They use jokes. They sell powders and perform quick cures to gather a crowd and make a profit. Many towns allow them on market days. Some fine them if they lie. Some look the other way if the crowd is happy. The stage makes medicine into a show. The tooth drawer waves a tin. The helper shakes it, and coins jingle like rain on a roof. He asks for a brave volunteer with a wicked molar and a pure heart. The pure heart part gets a laugh. A miller with a jaw like a cracked rock steps up. He slaps the side of his face and winces. He is your brave, tired brave. The crowd leans insofar you feel the air tilt. The showman holds up a small vial. He calls it breath of paradise. He swirls it, opens it, and fans the scent toward the miller. You smell wine, mint, and something sweet like poppy syrup. He tips a drop on a cloth and presses it to the miller's lip. He sings a soft, silly song. The drum falls quiet. The miller's shoulders loosen a notch. The showman turns to the crowd and whispers, loud enough for all, "Painless." Historians continue to debate whether these claims are accurate. They say whether a quick hand, a strong dose, and a loud patter hide hurt, or truly mute it. They argue about how often a pull in a place like this goes clean. You watch the miller's eyes. They appear to be a man who has decided to be brave in front of his neighbors. That adds its own numbness. He opens his mouth. The helper puts a cloth between the molars on the good side. The showman wraps a strap around the miller's forehead and the back of the chair. He jokes that it keeps hair from flying off. The crowd laughs. Your shoulders drop. Jokes help people stand still. Joke 1. The showman flourishes a napkin and says, "For privacy." He drapes it over the miller's shoulder like a fancy diner. The miller snorts even now. You notice a narrow iron glinting by the table. You do not stare. You have learned not to stare at sharp things. The showman does not name the tool. He keeps the mystery wrapped so the crowd stares at his face, not the metal. He steps in. He breathes. He hums 1 bar. He places the iron. He twists. He levers. He counts to 3. He goes on 2. There is a slight sound. Not a scream. Not a crack. A low pop, like a thumb from a jar. The helper lifts the cloth. The showman holds up a small, pale tooth, like a pearl with legs. The crowd groans and cheers simultaneously. You grab the cat with your eyes. The cat yawns, calm as a priest. The helper drops the tooth into a tin with a clink. He packs the socket with clean lint. He holds up a jar of vinegar and says a word about rinsing tomorrow. He hands the miller a coin-sized medal of a saint and a packet of salt. The miller spits pink, stands, and bows like a king. The crowd gives him a clap fit for a feast. The showman bows deeper, of course. A fringed tidbit prances in behind the drum. The helper brings out a tiny monkey in a cap. It beats a toy tambour with 2 sticks and collects coins in a wooden cup. The showman says the monkey only eats when it smiles. He feeds it a pear. The crowd laughs. Some swear a monkey on the stage keeps evil eyes off the work. You are not sure the evil eyes can compete with that cap. The showman pours some powder from a blue jar onto a scrap of paper. He calls it dragon bone, ground to a fine powder. He says to rub it on sore gums to make the worm flee. You think of your smoke quill friend. You think of jars with proofs. You think of old bones from beasts dug up in riverbanks and sold as dragons. It is not a bad powder. It is chalk and a bit of bone. It might even help as a mild polish. It is not a dragon, but the word feels good in a mouth that hurts. People buy comfort as much as cures. He holds up another bottle with a cloudy lump inside. He swears it is a bezoar. He says 1 shavings of wine filters poisons. He is a salesman. He knows the crowd. He sells a little hope and a little fear, tied with a red ribbon. You consider, then save your coin for bread. The helper brings a length of thin cord. He ties it around a clove. He drops the clove into a volunteer's mouth and has him place it by the bad tooth. He then ties the other end of the cord to a stick. He says, "Hold steady." He yanks the stick away with a snap. The clove pops free, not the tooth. Everyone laughs with relief. It is a trick to make the real pull seem kinder. The showman smiles. He likes it when the crowd laughs in the middle. Laughter loosens faces. Loosened faces open their mouths. Joke 2. He holds up a tiny mirror and says, "This shows the worm's house." He shows the mirror to a man who has no front teeth. "Oh," he says, "the worm paid rent for years." The man laughs so hard he wheezes. It is rough humor. It is still kind. A city watchman strolls by. He stands at the back with arms folded. He waits to see if the showman cheats or cuts wild. The showman sees him and makes a bow as smooth as cream. He says he pays the fee. He says the guild is fine with him. He says many things. The watchman eats a nut and says nothing. He watches the hands more than the mouth. Smart. The showman opens a wooden case lined with velvet. He lets the crowd see a blur of shapes. Hooks, clamps, a beak, a curved something that looks like a key. He closes the case again. He is not here to teach. He is here to dazzle. You note the case all the same. Your mind puts it on a shelf for later. The helper hawks essence of pearl for white teeth. It looks like chalk and wine. He swears nobles use it. He rubs it on his own tooth and smiles big. The crowd laughs at the gall. A woman asks for a jar to make her husband stop grinding. The helper says he does not sell quite for men. The woman gives him a look that should be bottled and sold. A boy at the edge of the crowd ties a string to his own loose tooth, then to a door ring on a cart. He stomps away. The tooth stays put, the string snaps. The crowd cheers anyway. He bows like he planned it. He did not. He looks pale and proud. You give him a nod. He gives you a gap-toothed grin. A simple truth sits beside your foot. Fairs are where news, tricks, and cures collide. A man learns a joke in one town and sells it in the next. A woman sees a powder bottle here and paints the same label on a bottle 2 markets over. A tool appears on a stage, Then it is featured in a shop a month later. The road carries everything. Even a bad idea can travel in fine boots. The showman calls for one more brave soul. A cobbler steps up with a swollen gum. The showman does not pull this time. He lances the gum with a tiny cut, so fast the cobbler blinks, and it is done. He presses a warm cloth. He holds his head high. He mutters about bad humors and letting them out. The cobbler sighs like a bellows closing. The crowd nods. Not every act needs a trophy tooth. Historians still argue whether a stage like this harms more than it helps. They say whether quick cuts in dirty air made trouble later, or if speed and skill kept harm low. They say whether the show people were mostly cheats or mostly barbers with flair. The truth is messy, like markets, like people. Joke 3. The showman throws a handful of mint leaves into the air and declares the breath of the fair cured. A dog leaps, catches one, and runs like it just won a crown. The crowd laughs and claps for the dog. The dog bows better than the showman. You feel the warmth of your metal against your skin. You taste clove. You still carry a soft seed of poppy in your bones. Your jaw sits quietly through the noise. The cat slips onto the stage steps, curls up, and becomes a tiny, very confident rug. It is hard to argue with that level of calm. The helper offers you a jar of tooth powder made from sage and salt, along with a whisper of charcoal. You sniff. It smells clean. He advises rubbing it with a cloth each night. You remember the monk's garden. You remember the barber's lint. You like a cure that is simple and not loud. You hand over a coin. The helper drops in a sprig of mint for luck. The show winds down with a tune on the pipe and a bow that lasts too long. The jar of proofs goes into the case. The monkey counts its coins with great care. The drum says goodbye in 3 soft taps. The crowd swirls away in lines of smoke and talk and sweet nuts and new stories to tell at tables. You stand a moment longer. You let the sawdust and music sink in. You nod to the showman. He tips his hat. He is a storm and a lull at once. You step aside and let the fair fold around you. The cat springs from the steps to your heel. The torches spit as dew finds their edges. Your jaw is quiet, but awake. You carry powder and patience. You have doubt and delight. You bring a little faith in hands that move fast and hearts that move slow. The road waits, warm with footprints. You take the next one. You slip behind the wagon where the noise thins. The helper squats by a chest and oils hinges with a rag that smells like wine and tallow. The showman is busy counting coins. The helper glances up and nods. He flips the lid. Velvet folds back. Cold iron blinks in the torchlight. Your jaw gives a tiny tap like it knows what lives here. He lifts a tool shaped like a bird's beak. The handle sits in his palm like it was born there. Pelican, he says. You can see why. 2 jaws. 1 long curve. A rest that will press on the gum. A claw that will bite the tooth. He lets you hold it. It is heavy for its size. The iron is smooth where many hands have polished it by use. It hums a little in your fingers, like a cat when it sees a warm lap. He points at the parts. This pad rests on the ridge of bone. He calls it the bolster. This claw hooks around the neck of the tooth. He shows a tiny screw that allows the claw to creep tighter, slowly and surely. He sets the pelican against a sheep's skull that lies nearby. He places a fold of lint under the bolster. He taps the lint. Kindness, he says. You feel a small pride in your pocket. Your stolen lint gets a nod from fate. A mainstream fact breathes here. A learned surgeon in the 1300s writes about this beak-shaped tool. He calls it the pelican. Barbers and surgeons across towns have used it for centuries. Pulls front teeth. It wrestles molars when the angle is correct. It is the workhorse of extractions in many places. He shows the move. Hook the claw low on the crown. Not too low. Not on the root. Set the bolster high on the gum, just beyond the tooth. Tighten a hair. Lift. Turn a touch. Then a firm, short lever. He does not force the skull. He does not need to. You can see the path. You can imagine the sound. A soft pop. A small relief. Then he shows the wrong way. He drops the bolster too low. He levered hard. The skull shows a faint stress line near the ridge. Bad angle, he murmurs. Hurt into harm. He points at places pain can go when iron is angry. The gum can tear. The root can snap and hide under the edge. The ridge can crack. The jaw can click and sulk for months. He says this without drama. He has seen things. Historians still argue whether most hands that used pelicans knew enough anatomy to spare bone, or if luck and habit did as much work as skill. They also debate how often a root broke and stayed. Some say often, some say less than we fear. The truth lives with the quiet men who kept no books and many tools. Joke 1. He taps the pelican and says, "It eats teeth, not fish." You grin with half your mouth. The cat blinks as if it approves of the joke more than the tool. He cleans the beak with wine and a bit of linen. He shows a small pad made of leather. He says to place it under the bolster to spare the gum. He says some do not. He says patience is the real pad. He points at a notch on the handle. He cut it to mark the safe grip. Hands slide when hands sweat, he says. He wraps the handle in eel skin and ties it with red thread. A fringe tidbit winks at you. He swears eel skin keeps the grip true. He swears the red thread keeps his nerve brave. He also has a tiny medal of Saint Apollonia tied near the screw. You touch your own medal. It warms in your palm like an ember. He sets the pelican down and lifts a simpler piece. Forceps, 2 arms, a hinge, a beak with rough lines cut in for bite. The handles flare like a bird's tail. He opens and closes them. The sound is a soft click, like a beetle tapping wood. He lets you hold them. They feel honest. They feel like pliers who went to school. He explains the use. Grasp the tooth near the neck. Rock a little, front to back, slow. No crush, no rush. He says these are good for roots left behind, for baby teeth that hang on too long, for shards. He shows the wrong move again. A squeeze too hard. The crown shatters like old plaster. Then there is nothing to hold. Now the work gets long. He shakes his head. Soft hands, he says. Always. He holds the beak to the sheep's skull. He shows the angle he likes for side teeth. Low and steady. He shows the one he hates. High and wild. That one pinches the gum and bruises the ridge. He does not need to say more. You can feel it with your eyes. He points to the hinge. He drops a bead of oil there. He says clean hinges make clean pulls. He wipes the tips with wine again. He says iron that smells like a tavern heals better than iron that smells like a stable. You agree. Your nose agrees with cheers. He opens a narrow wrap with a wooden handle at one end. The other end has a claw that turns on a pin. A round pad sits under the claw like a shoe on a tiny foot. The whole thing looks like a door key that took vitamins. He calls it a key. He does not say tooth key, though the shape is near. He says a cousin in the city uses one all day. He says it is faster for some pulls. He also says it is a tricky teacher if you hold it wrong. He shows how it sits. The pad rests on the gum beside the tooth. The claw hooks the far side. Then you twist the handle as if you were opening a lock. The tooth lifts. The ridge takes the force. The twist is short, not wild. He shows the wrong way. A big turn at speed. He taps a line on the skull where the ridge would crack. He does not smile. Bad angle, he repeats. Always bad. A simple truth walks by and nods. This key turns pulls into turns. Quick, strong, risky. It becomes famous later. It spreads with printed books and busy cities. Out here it is new and rare. Historians still debate whether key figures like this arrived in small towns before 1600 or only after. They also argue whether the first ones saved time or just moved harm from one place to another. The helper shrugs. Some love it, he says. Some throw it in a ditch. He lets you feel the weight of the handle. You try a tiny twist on the sheep tooth. Even without any pain, the move feels bold. It asks for trust. It asks for a steady wrist. You set it down with care. Your palm wakes with a slow thrum. Joke 2. You ask if there is a smaller key for a tiny door in your mouth. He snorts. We only make one size of panic, he says. The cat yawns like it has heard this banter since it was a kitten. He opens a small pouch. Outcome. All linen squares are clean. He rolls one into a ball. He tucks it under the bolster of the pelican. He tucks another under the pad of the key. Cushions, he says, for bone and pride. He holds up a tiny wedge of wood. He sets it between 2 sheep's teeth. He says sometimes you brace one place to save another. He says sometimes you do not pull today. You wait. You let smoke, clove, and time do their share. You like him very much for that line. He points at a nick on his thumb. He says the iron bit him when he was new. He keeps the nickname as a teacher. He says new hands want a rush. Old hands wish for a clear view, good light, a clean cloth, and a quiet joke. Joke 3, he claims his tools work better if he sings off-key, because pain runs from bad music. You tell him to sing only when the cat approves. The cat blinks slowly. Approval granted. You notice little marks scratched into the metal. Crosses, a star, a line of dots. He says they remind him of which claw fits which tooth. He says they also feel like small prayers. He does not say it loud. He does not need to. He packs the tools with care. Iron sleeps in velvet. Cloth sits on top. Oil then wine lid. He ties the chest with a leather strap and pats it like a dog. He looks at your face and your hand. He sees the calm but also the watchfulness. He says, "If you sit, I will go slow. If you walk, I will not chase." You nod. You are not ready to be a skull on a bench. Not tonight. A lantern swings. The fare thins to whispers. The smell of clove still hangs on your breath. The metal warms your collarbone. The thunderstone rides in your pocket like a quiet moon. A wind stirs sawdust and drops it in small stars. You take one step back from the chest, then another. You thank him for the lesson. He taps the pelican once, like a farewell to a bird that never flies. Historians still argue whether tools made the craft or hands did. Whether the pelican, the forceps, or the key was king of the lane. You decide the answer is simple. Care is king. Angle is queen. Lint is the kind ant who brings soup. You promise yourself this. If iron meets your tooth, it will do so with a pad, a steady wrist, and a joke on the air. You leave the wagon's shadow. The cat follows like a footnote that has legs. The path turns toward darker streets. Your jaw is calm but awake. You run your tongue over the sore spot and feel a slight flare. Then it quiets. You let the night hold the tools. You carry only their lessons. You step softly. You breathe slowly. The city listens, and for once, it does not ask for anything back. You leave the wagon's shadow and drift into lanes where hedges lean close. Straw crunches. A moth bumps your cheek like a tiny pillow. Your cat keeps pace, tail up like a flag. A thatched roof peeks over a garden wall. Smoke noses the air with thyme and wood. A door lifts on its leather hinge. Warm light spills out. A woman waves you in with 3 fingers and a smile. Her hair is a gray braid. Her eyes miss nothing. The room smells of nettle, garlic, and a clean fire. Copper pots line a beam. A cradle creaks in a corner, more rhythm than sound. A black cat owns the hearth and does not blink at you or your cat. Of course, she pats a stool. You sit. She touches your jaw with cool fingers. She nods the way a weather-wise person nods at clouds. She does not ask for a coin first. She points at a basket. Eggs sit there like small moons. She says, "1 now, 2 after harvest." You nod. Barter is math. Joke 1, your tooth offers to pay in complaints. She says complaints have no yolks. A mainstream fact sits on her shelf in the shape of a strip of bark. Willow. She snaps a sliver and hands it to you. She says, "Chew slow. Spit. Do not swallow much." The taste is bitter and clean. Your tongue wakes. Your jaw hums lower. Willow holds a small amount of what later becomes a famous pain remedy. People learn it by fields, not by books. They use it for fevers and for teeth that drum too hard. She sets bread in a small bowl. She pours warm milk over it and stirs in a pinch of salt and sage. The scent is soft. She wraps the mash in cloth and presses it to your cheek. The heat soaks in. Your skin sighs. She brews a rinse of sage and vinegar. She tells you to hold it by the sore place. You do. Your mouth feels busy in a good way. Your mind falls quiet for a blink. She looks at your bite. She uses a thread, laid across your teeth, to see which ones meet first. She nods again. She takes a tiny bit of beeswax from a pot. She warms it near the fire. She dips a finger in clove oil and touches the wax. Then, with a clean stick, she presses a pea of wax into a little hollow on your sore molar. The wax sits like a cap. It blunts the touch when your jaw closes. It smells like honey and spice. Your tongue explores, curious and polite. She tells you to sleep on your side. She tells you not to breathe river fog before dawn. She ties your wrist with a red thread. Not tight, just a sign to yourself not to chew the sore side by habit. You like that her tools include thread and sense. You want the pain to listen to both. She squints at the wobble you feel when you press the tooth with your tongue. She takes a thin linen strand. She loops it around the sore tooth and the steady one beside it. She ties a soft knot, low near the gum. Not tight, just snug. Your tooth feels less alone. The knot sits like a guard. It is a simple splint, made of the same cloth as a sleeve. It is humble and kind. She asks about smoke and quills. You tell her you met a woman with henbane seeds. She nods. She says smoke helps because smoke is warm and patient. She says cloves help because cloves are brave. She taps your pocket where the metal rests. She smiles when she feels its shape. Good company, she says. Saint and sage are friends here. A fringe tidbit wanders in on a laugh. She says some folks swear a donkey's breath calms a tooth. Stand by the nose, she says, and let it huff on you. You try to picture asking a donkey for this favor. The donkey in your mind has notes and fees. You smile. She smiles back. Or, she adds, you can sit by my fire instead. You choose the fire. Historians still argue whether hedge healers like her learned from old books, from their grandmothers, or from years of careful trial and error. They also argue whether these kitchens helped more than they delayed a hard pull. They say whether townspeople tried to stop women like her or quietly sent their kin here at night. The truth is a mix, like her mash. Warm, useful, a little of this, a little of that. She opens a small box. Inside lie tiny slips of wood with marks. She picks one and scratches a notch in it. One egg to come, she says. She tucks the slip back. She trusts you. She trusts her marks even more. Your cat and her cat exchange a slow blink. That counts as a contract. She asks for your thunderstone. You hand it to her. She dips it in warm water and sets the cup by the hearth. She says water that sleeps with a lucky stone makes dreams calm. She does not promise more. You respect that. You like promises that fit in the palm of your hand. She gives you a twig, birch with a soft end. She says to chew it to clean the teeth and bring blood to the gums. You remember the licorice root from the market. Sticks are the toothbrushes of many nights. They do a fair job with a steady hand. She adds a pinch of salt to a small cone of charcoal and sage. She tells you to rub a little on your cloth and clean your teeth at dawn. You think of the powder you bought at the fair. You feel like a person with options. Joke 2. She tells you her cat is her apprentice. He is very good at naps and looking wise, she says. The cat opens one eye in agreement. Your cat pretends not to care and steals the warm spot near the bellows. A knock comes at the door. A boy peeks in. He says his uncle's tooth is wild. She wraps a jar, a cloth bundle, and a spoon. She nods for you to come if you like to walk. You like. The lane curves past hens and a sleeping cart. A barn door stands open. A forge glows inside like a sunset caught in a box. The smith wipes his hands. His arms look like tree roots. His eyes are kind and tired. He sees your cheek. He sees the woman's bundle. He sets a stool near the light. A bellows sighs. Sparks float up and fade like fireflies who forgot the dance. He shows you his tools. Not many. A small pair of nippers, a fine file, a strip of leather to bite, a bowl of warm water that smells faintly of wine. He laughs when he sees your glance. Wine cleans, he says. Also, I like wine. You nod. He holds the nippers in the light and wipes them slowly. He does not brag. He works. A mainstream fact stands by the anvil. In many small places, if a tooth had to go, the smith sometimes did the job. He had strong hands, iron, and a steady place to sit. He pulled stubborn nails. He pulled stubborn molars. He filed sharp edges when a broken tooth cut tongues. He charged a fair price and took eggs when coins hid. He checks the uncle's mouth. He does not rush. He props the jaw with a small wooden wedge. He hums the way workers hum when the song is only for the air. He tests the grip. He breathes. He lifts. He twists a hair. He is gentle for a man who makes plows. The uncle squeezes the leather and stares at a spot on the beam. The move is fast. The breath after it is slow. You know that breath. You saw it at the barber. You saw it with the monk. The shapes change. The relief looks the same. He dips lint in warm wine and packs the spot. He nods at the rinse. Salt water tomorrow. No cider tonight. He gives the uncle a joke as medicine. Joke 3. If you must bite, bite only the moon. The uncle laughs through the gauze. It sounds like a little storm leaving town. The smith turns to you. He asks about your bite. He looks at the wax you carry. He says it is smart. He offers the file for a sharp edge that nicks your tongue. You think. You open. He brushes the edge once, then twice with a file so fine it sings like a mosquito. The edge turns kind. You taste a hint of iron, followed by a hint of honey from the wax. Your jaw says thank you in a language with no words. A fringe tidbit sits by the quench tub. A small horseshoe nail, tied with red thread. The smith says some folks bite a cooled nail for luck and to pull the ache into iron. He shrugs. He lets them keep the nail. He says it is cheaper than poppy and gives the hands a job. Historians still argue whether men like him were rare helpers or common in every hamlet. They argue whether the work was clean enough under a roof with soot. They say whether the warm forge kept trouble low or hid it for later. The records of eggs do not speak for themselves. People's mouths do. He accepts payment in eggs and, in return, he promises to mend a gate. The woman nods and makes another notch on her little stick. The barn cools as the fire settles. Your cat tests the anvil and decides it is not a bed. The blacksmith's dog lifts one ear and then forgets the world again. You step back into the lane with a wax cap in place, a splint that hugs, and a cheek that remembers heat. The air smells of hay and iron. The moon sits higher, thin and neat. You touch your metal. You feel the thunderstone through the cloth. You carry a rinse, a powder, and a plan. Your steps are slow. Your breath is even. You think of the pelican's beak and the key's twist. You think of the monk's hum and the barber's brag. You think of a wise woman's knot and a smith's file. All are ways to stand between pain and night. All ask for steady hands. All ask for patience. You now have a little more of both. The cat pads along, pleased with the route. You tell it you will sleep soon. Pretends it chose that plan. Your jaw grows quiet, like a drum covered with a soft cloth. You walk past the hedges, past the eggs, past the door that gave light, and you watch the road settle like a blanket pulled up to your chin. You angle toward stone steps bright with torchlight. A door yawns wide. Inside, benches line a hall that smells like wax, ink, and damp wool. A clerk scratches with a quill. A bell sits near his elbow. It does not ring. It waits. Your cat slides in first, tail up, as if it has already paid its dues here. Men in clean coats stand by a table. Their sleeves show neat stripes of red thread. Their hands are scrubbed and dry. A basin sits on the board. A bundle of clean lint sits beside it. A chest holds iron tools wrapped in cloth. These are wardens of a guild. Barber-surgeons, the clerk whispers, as if the words might run if spoken loudly. A mainstream fact sits right on the table. In many towns, barbers form guilds. The city gives them rules. They bleed. They shave. They lance. They pull teeth. Surgeons join them in some places. In other areas, surgeons keep a separate house. Physicians read books in schools and write fees on paper. Apothecaries sell herbs and syrups. Who may touch a tooth for pay? The city writes the answer, then rewrites it the following year. A traveling tooth drawer from the fair stands before the table. He has washed his hands. His bright coat looks dull in this light. He opens his tool roll. The pelican shows its beak. Forceps blink. A key glints and then hides under the cloth. The warden lifts each piece, sniffing for wine, not stables. He nods when he smells clean. He scowls at a nick and points with one finger. The showman bows and says he will file it smoothly. The guild likes smooth. The clerk reads from a small book. The words have a careful tread. To work in town, you need a license. To open a chair, you must serve for years as an apprentice. You must show a masterpiece, a neat stitch, a clean pull on a jaw from the butcher. Tools must be kept clean. Cloth must be fresh. No cutting on holy days unless the need is sharp. No tricks, no lies, no songs with rude words while shaving a priest. The last line gets a cough from the back bench. Joke one. The cat jumps on the bench like it wants to join. The clerk looks down and asks if the cat has 7 years of mouse work. You say yes. He writes provisional member with a smile no one owns. Historians still debate whether rules like these were enforced strictly or leniently. They also argue whether the line between barber and surgeon was clear or a blur you could only see on paper. In daily life, hands do many jobs. The guild tried to draw a fence. The market made a gate, then forgot to shut it. A woman steps up with a complaint. Her husband burned his gum because a fake doctor pressed a hot coin there. He charged a week's bread. He left at dawn. The wardens listen. They ask her to describe his face. They sent a boy for the watch. The clerk writes, fine for false practice, in tidy lines. The woman leaves with a few coins from the guild chest. A little mercy sits under the ink. A warden lifts a string of proofs, teeth pale as shells. He tells the showman to stop hanging them where flies meet and children stare. He says the city will fine him if he does. The showman bows. He slides the string back into the chest. Proofs are for books here, not hooks. On the side wall, a chart hangs. It shows days marked with red drops. Bloodletting seasons, the clerk says. Spring, early fall. Times when the body, by custom, should be lightened. People come for a cut then. They ask for teeth then, too, when pain and rules meet. The guild posts fees. This much for a shave. This much for a lance. This much for a tooth. More if the roots are hidden. You read the list like a menu you would rather not order, but will. A quirky tidbit lives in a basket under the table, pig jaws, bought from the market. A warden lifts one. He says apprentices practice placements on these before they touch a person. He taps the neck of a molar with a stick. He shows where the pelican fits. He smiles at your face. He says, better a pig learns the angle than a neighbor. The clerk unrolls a ribbon with seals. Wax circles hang from cords like cherries. Names sit under them. Masters in good standing. They light candles on their saint's day and feed people experiencing poverty with coins from the dues. Many choose Cosmas and Damien as patrons. Some choose Apollonia for teeth. The guild pays for a candle by her image in winter. That makes you smile, your metal hums where it sits. A man in a long gown stands at the edge. He is from the physician's school. He coughs when the word tooth is said. He says teeth are bones, and bones are hard work. He says barbers should not cut deep. A surgeon in the room tilts his head. He says he cuts when cutting saves. He says he will not wait for Latin while a jaw swells like a drum. The clerk looks at the ceiling. He has heard this tune. He lets it play out. Then he writes a note about cooperation, which is a fancy way to say, try not to fight near the door. Historians still argue whether the church banned surgery for clerics, forcing lay people to take the knife. They say whether a phrase about avoiding blood meant no cutting at all or just no cutting in a mass. They also say whether these rules shaped the way teeth work, or if the street did. You watch the barber's hands and the surgeon's jaw. People with steady hands tend to persevere, regardless of what books say. Fees and fines go back and forth like small boats. The showman pays for a week's license. He promises to work under a guildman's eye. The guild takes a coin for the box that helps poor widows. The clerk notes that a shop may not set a bowl outside unless a guildman stands behind it. The watch nods. He likes it when rules make his walk shorter. Joke 2. A warden asks if the toothworm has paid dues this year. The room laughs. You say the worm sent regrets and a cold onion. The clerk writes no onions in the hall, as if it were law. Now it is. A list of no hangs by the door. No leeches in the water trough. No tossing bloody cloth in the gutter. No shaving boys who should be in school. No singing while the city bell rings curfew. The rules make sense. They also make life tidy for the clerk. He likes tidiness. He likes ink more than jokes. He hides a smile anyway. A young man stands in the corner, his hands shaking. He has finished his years. He will take his test. A jaw lies on the table. He names each tooth. He shows where nerves enter. He shows where to place lint, where to push, and how to spare bone. He lifts the pelican. He sets it and does not lever. He only shows the motion with his wrist. His hand is steady by the end. Less so at the start. The wardens nod. The clerk writes his name under the seal ribbon. A new hand joins the city's circle. The apothecary from the tavern peeks in. He holds up a jar and says he will sell only herbs, not touches. The wardens nod. They like clear lines. He bows and leaves with a rustle of mint. He has learned how rooms like this breathe. A small boy runs in with a message. The fair is closing. The watch has found the fake doctor. The warden stands. He thanks the watch for its quick feet. He tells the clerk to spare a coin for the woman who came. He tells the hall that lies are not cures. He describes the room that clean hands and clear rules make mouths safer. Big words for a simple truth. A mainstream fact steps down from the bench. Some cities post names of quacks. Some set them in the stocks for a day. Some send them on with a warning and a fee. Towns do not want chaos. Towns also do not want an empty lane with no one to pull when a drum starts at midnight. The balance is a dance no one finishes. Joke 3. The clerk stamps a paper and holds it up, as if it cures pain. You ask if the stamp comes with clove oil. He says no, but the wax is mint. He cracks a smile at his own joke, which is rare and worth the wait. Historians still debate whether the guilds prioritized the public's interests or their own financial gain. They also argue whether rules kept most tools clean, or if the best cleaning was a fast job in good light with a sharp edge. The paper trail is neat. The street is not. You know which one your jaw lives on. You step out with the cat. The hall door settles on its hinge. The rules stay inside. The night takes you back. You carry the sense that care is not only tools and hands. It is also who is allowed to use them and who watches them work. Your metal sits warm. Your wax cap holds. Your mouth is a quiet room with a few guests and a clear host. The moon leans on a roof. A bell counts the hour with soft notes. You think of the monk's book and the barber's pole and the showman's chest. All of them now sit under a net of rules, some wise, some silly. You feel safer than you did. Not safe forever. Safe enough for this walk. You and the cat turn toward a street where the lamps burn low and the scent of vinegar rides a slight wind. You tuck your chin, tug your cloak, and take the next slow step. You walk into a street that smells like smoke and sour apples. Bells toll, slow and steady. A watchman waves a branch of herbs and calls for the windows to stay open. Fires burn in iron pans at corners. Juniper crackles. Rosemary pops. The air feels hot and sharp in your nose. Your jaw keeps its slight hum. It is a quiet drum under louder sounds. Doorways hold chalk marks and prayer slips. A woman ties sprigs of rue to a latch. A boy carries a bowl of vinegar with a rag floating like a lazy moon. People touch the rag, dab their hands, and wipe their mouths. Coins drop in and clink like small bells. Your cat sneezes. It looks offended by the vinegar and then forgives the world. A mainstream fact stands beside the smoke. In plague years, many believe bad air spreads sickness. They call it miasma. Cities order fires in the streets. They tell people to carry herbs. They wash with vinegar. In some ports, new ships wait 40 days before landing. Quarantine. 40. A long, slow word. Rules grow thick when fear is intense. You step into a square where a table holds cups and a jug of vinegar water. A woman with sleeves rolled back ladles with calm hands. She tells you to rinse, spit, and breathe slowly. She adds salt and a pinch of sage. She says it sweetens breath and drives off foul airs. You swish. Hold the mixture near the sore tooth. It stings, then it soothes. Your tongue feels clean, like a floor just swept. A barber you met once nods from a doorway. He has set his chair outside. He keeps a brazier near, smoking rosemary, as if the herb can build a wall around his work. He wipes his tools with wine. He holds up lint like a flag of truce. He tells people that rotten teeth send poisons upward. He says pulling them keeps the head clear. Is it true? You do not know. But the line at his stool is long today. Joke 1. You sniff a pomander, a ball of wax stuffed with spice, and say your breath just asked for hazard pay. The woman with the ladle laughs and gives you a sprig of mint. Cheaper than wages, she says. Men and women pinch their noses with cloths dipped in vinegar. Some people tuck a small sponge into a bit of tin and hang it from their belt. They call it a pest sponge. They sniff it when the wind shifts. A clerk rubs the door rings with vinegar. He says it keeps hands honest. He also says it keeps him busy. He smiles a tired smile, fits the day. You watch a quick pull at the barber's chair. A man with rank breath asks to be free of a dark molar. The barber hums. He sets lint. He lifts with the pelican you held last night. He is gentle. He is fast. He packs the place with clean cloth and says, "No hot soup. Salt tomorrow." The man spits pink, thanks him, and walks away lighter. You feel your own tooth sit up and pay attention. Historians still argue whether pulls rose in sick years because people feared poison vapors from bad teeth, or because swelling and fever exacerbated old aches simultaneously. They also argue whether vinegar rinses did much to alleviate the plague, or only made mouths feel braver. The records mention smoke, posies, and cleanings. The numbers hide. You follow a line of folks to a man selling small brass balls. They open on a hinge. Inside are holes and spice, cloves, nutmeg, amber. He calls them pomanders. He advises keeping one near the lips. He says even saints like a sweet nose. You roll one in your palm. It is heavy and warm. You decide your cat would bat it under a bench and never give it back. A fringe tidbit lands on the table with the coins. A string with letters in a triangle. ABRACADABRA. Each line drops a letter. People hang it on their necks to drop the illness letter by letter. The woman at the ladle shrugs. She says if it helps the heart, it helps the body. She also says to rinse after supper anyway. A priest passes with a small censer. The smoke is sweet. He blesses the air, the doorposts, and the hands. He taps his ring against your knuckles. It is cool. You think of Saint Apollonia. You touch your metal. It warms with your skin. The priest nods as if he sees more than metal. Joke 2. You tuck a posy into your collar and call it your portable garden. A child nearby says your mouth finally eats salad. The child's mother tries not to laugh. Tries, fails. The laugh rings clear and kind. You stop at a bench where an older woman sells mastic gum, little resin tears. You buy a few. You chew. They taste like forests and candles. Your mouth feels clean. Your jaw stops complaining for a minute and listens to the gum's small creaks. She adds a strip of dried orange peel to your hand. She says to chew that too. It is bitter and brave. A notice on a wall tells people to sweep in front of their doors, to carry refuse away from wells, to keep pigs off the street, to open shutters when the bell rings thrice. City rules pile up like stones. Strong rules, some smart, some silly, all hopeful. A man in a hood writes a red cross on a shutter and pins a paper that says, "Lord, have mercy." You see the ink dry in the sun. You stand near another table where a careful man washes coins in vinegar. He lays them out to dry on cloth. He says he does not fear silver, only hands. You hand him a coin and watch him scrub it like a potato. It shines like a new moon. He nods, satisfied. He tells you to wash your tooth powder spoon, too. You promise. The barber sets out a bowl for people to spit after their rinse. He empties it often. He pours hot water and vinegar over it. He takes pride in his tidy work. He says tidy keeps hurting small. You remember his snug and neat. You like that he keeps saying it. It stays true even when bells toll. Someone whispers about doctors with beak masks. The barber snorts. He says that is a far-off fashion, not this town, not this year. He lifts his simple cloth. He smells like rosemary and wine. He looks like a man who solves problems with clean hands and a brisk song. A young woman asks if garlic will save her. The ladle woman says it will save her soup. She says a clove to chew is good for breath and for courage. She gives one to you, too. You crack it between your molars. It burns in a way that feels like a fight you win. Historians still argue whether people in your time held sponges, pomanders, and posies more for their scent than for their medicinal properties. They also say whether pulling a rotten tooth in a plague week lowered risk at all. Some say yes because rot feeds fever. Some say no because time and chance chose. You cannot solve the books. You can only feel the small ease of a clean mouth. A boy with a bell walks past. He rings it softly, like a lullaby. He calls out a warning and a prayer. He has learned to ring with dramatic timing, and you try not to clap. He bows his little head and keeps moving. Joke 3. Your cat sniffs a pomander ball, bats it once, and looks at you like, that is not a cure, that is a toy. You agree and buy mint instead. The sun slides low, the smoke thins, the vinegar fades to a ghost. Your tongue tastes salt and herbs with a hint of garlic fire. Your jaw is steady. It is not silent, but it does not shout. The metal presses against your skin like a small hand. The thunderstone sits cool in your pocket. Your lint waits, patient and white. A clerk hands you a slip with straightforward advice. Keep your mouth clean. Rinse with warm vinegar and sage. Chew parsley after meat. Do not share cups. Sleep with the head high. Call if the drum grows loud. He writes call, as if he means knock on a door. He does. People are doors here. You pass the brazier and hold your hands to it. Juniper sparks. Rosemary sighs. You close your eyes and let the heat write stars on your skin. The bell stops. The street takes a breath. You take one too. Your jaw takes another. You turn away from the smoke and rules with a small calm in your chest and a clean taste in your mouth. You walk on step by step. The cat keeps pace. The moon grows. The night feels less sharp and more like a blanket. Your mind lists what you carry. Powder, sage, mint, a rinse, a medal, a stone, a memory of steady hands, and a simple plan. Keep the mouth clean, the breath sweet, and the fear small. It will do for this hour. It will do until the next bell. A drum rolls by the gate, slow and low. Torches bob like miniature suns. Horses breathe white clouds into the night. Leather creaks. Chain links chirp. You follow the sound out past the walls to a scatter of tents. Smoke rises. A pot boils somewhere with barley and meat. Your cat walks like it owns the camp. A banner shows a lion with tired eyes. A surgeon's tent stands nearby the cook fire. It smells of wine, wool, and wet leather. A lantern glows under canvas. Shadows move. You slip in at the flap. Your jaw hums a little, but it is shy in a place like this. Inside, a man in a stained apron ties a bandage around a soldier's head. Under the wrap sits a stiff leather cap, shaped to fit the chin. The cap resembles a saddle for the face. The man hums low, A tune close to the monk's note. His hands are quick and kind. He says, snug and neat, and you smile because you know that line. A knight sits on a stool. His visor lies on a chest with a dent the size of a fist. His lower jaw swells. His lips are split at the corners. He does not cry out. He breathes like a bellows on the slow pull. The surgeon holds a wooden spatula between the knight's teeth. He guides the bite. He taps with a finger. He waits for the click that means the top and bottom lines are lined up again. He nods. The knight nods back, just a hair. A mainstream fact sits on the table with the lint. Some surgeons in these centuries wrote about broken jaws. They say tie the jaw to the head with a broadband. They say wire tooth to tooth if you must, to keep the bite accurate. They say wash with wine, pack with lint, and feed with broths. A famous one in Avignon writes this down in a big book. Men copy it for years. The surgeon wipes the knight's lips with wine. He sets a warm cloth. He checks teeth for sharp edges. He melts a bit of wax and caps one that acts like a tiny knife. He slips a loop of soft metal around 2 teeth to hold them securely in place. He twists the ends flat. He tucks the twist where lips will not catch. He places a pad under the chin cap. He wraps the band more. The knight looks like his head is in a gentle hug. He offers a cup with poppy and ale. The knight drinks small sips. His eyes soften. His shoulders drop a finger. The hum in the tent takes a breath. Joke one. The surgeon tells him not to bite apples for a month. Bite victories, he says instead. The knight tries to grin. His eyes say the grin for him. A boy with a cut on his cheek sits on a chest. He holds his jaw with both hands. The surgeon peers into his mouth with a small lamp. A molar is shattered where a mace kissed it through a leather cap. The gum is puffy. The piece is loose like a pebble in a shoe. The surgeon chooses forceps. He grips low, rocks gently, then pulls firm and short, a soft pop. The boy blinks like he saw a star. Lint goes in. Wine rinse waits in a bowl. Honey sits in a tiny pot. The surgeon touches a drop over the lint. Honey keeps cloth from sticking and repels little beasts. The boy nods, dazed but lighter. Historians still debate whether honey in wounds was beneficial or if wine alone was the primary factor in the healing process. They also argue about how often wires were used, or whether most soldiers received only a chin band and soup. The books say one thing. The tents sometimes say something else. A leatherworker brings in a strip of boiled leather. He and the surgeon press it to the chin cap. They tie it to a strap that runs over the head and back. They make a cradle for the jaw. They talk like men who have done this often. Not sad, not cheerful, just steady. The leather smells like rain. You touch your metal and feel a calm walk down your arm. The surgeon sees it. He nods at Saint Apollonia and taps the strap. Watch over teeth, he says. He means the saint. He means his hands. He means both. The cart rolls past the flap. A young archer leans in. His mouth is swollen on one side. He cannot open wide. The surgeon warms a cloth and sets it along the jaw. He waits. He listens. He presses with a finger. He nods. He lifts a small, clean, and bright blade. He makes the tiniest cut near the sore. A drop. He presses more warm cloth. The archer sighs as the pressure lets go. The air in the tent shifts, as if a cloud had moved. The surgeon says, "Sleep up, rinse warm, no shouting." The archer tries to salute and almost smiles. A fringe tidbit hangs from the archer's neck. A wolf tooth smooth with years. He says it keeps jaw pain away in winter. He says his grandfather wore it when frost bit his teeth like glass. The surgeon shrugs. He says, "Wear it. Also wear this," and ties a band for the night. You like a world where luck and lint share a seat. The surgeon opens a small box. Inside are thin wires and linen threads. He shows a trick with a thread first. He loops around 2 teeth to close a gap. He ties soft and flat. He tells the boy with the broken molar to leave the thread for a few days. It will keep the neighbors from wandering. He smiles at neighbors. You do too. He shows you a wire made of a soft yellow metal. He says if a jaw wants more hold, he ties 1 tooth to its mate across the bite. He says it keeps bones still while they knit. He says he will use a wire only when the mouth is clean and the person is strong. He washes the wire in wine before he works. He dries it on a clean cloth. He is careful with all his quiet rules. He writes a note on a wax tablet. Soft foods, broths, milk, eggs, no hard crusts, no shouting at dawn. He sends it with a boy to the quartermaster. He asks for extra porridge for the jawband men. He asks for more honey and lint. He asks for mint if any comes in with trade. He is a small general for mouths. A simple fact walks in with a captain. Men in the field break jaws. Mace, fall, stirrup, a bad step, a bite on a tricky bit in panic. Surgeons in tents set them up as best they can. They use bandage caps. They use wax and wire. They use cloth and patience. They use wine to clean and poppy to calm. They do not have hours. They have minutes and will. Joke 2. The captain asks if he can still kiss his wife when he gets home. The surgeon says, yes, slow kisses. The tent laughs a low, kind laugh. The cat approves of this advice and cleans its own face like a show. On a shelf, you see a pelican, a pair of forceps, and a minor key. The key sits farther back, like even the tent is not quite sure. The surgeon taps the pelican. Friend, he says. He taps the key. Guest. He uses what he trusts for the mouth in front of him. You respect that. Tools are actors. The script is the jaw. Historians still debate whether field tents accelerated or hindered dental work, making it faster and harsher, or wiser and gentler. They also say that if wine washing lowers a fever later, or if luck did most of it. The tent does not argue. Ties, rinses, packs, and moves on to the next jaw. You help hold a lamp while the surgeon files a sharp tooth on a man whose tongue looks gnawed. The file sings a tiny note. He stops often. He checks with his finger. He wipes with wine. He drops a grain of clove oil on a rag and touches the spot. The man closes his eyes as if the night had gotten shorter. He shows you a chin strap with a slit and a buckle. He says at night, heads roll. He ties the strap to keep the mouth closed enough to rest. He says keep the breath clear and the spit free. He says no pillows that tip the head forward. He says a soldier can drown in what he swallows if the jaw refuses to open. You swallow. You stand a little straighter. He gives the knight a reed and points to a bowl. The knight drinks broth like a flute plays a low note. He does not spill. He looks proud of that. The surgeon nods. He says, you will heal. You will be bored for a while. The knight lifts the reed like a toast to boredom. Joke 3. You ask if the surgeon ever gets bored. He says, every time no one screams. You say that is your favorite kind of boredom. He points at your cheek. He says your drum is quiet tonight. You nod. You tell him you carry clove, wax, and a saint. He approves your list. He adds sleep to it with his eyes. He wraps a small packet for you anyway. Lint, a little wax, a twist of thread, a note to boil water before rinses. He says, if you must choose between speed and angle, choose angle. You repeat it. You will not forget. Outside, the camp settles. The cook fire pops. Horses snort and sleep. The moon sits like a coin above the banner. The cat walks through ropes like a ghost with paws. You step away from the tent with the slow pride of someone who watched good hands work. You carry lessons like small tools wrapped in your mind. You touch the thunderstone. It is cool as the night. You touch your metal. It is as warm as your skin. Your jaw feels held, not hounded. You think of the barber's pole, the monk's mortar, the fair's drum, and this tent's hum. They are all rooms for the same hope. The road back to the gate looks kind. You start toward it with your shoulders down and your breath easy. You pass back through the gate and into warmth. A doorway spills the smell of stew and music. A wedding feast pushes laughter into the lane. You slide in and lean by the hearth. Bread steams on boards. A spit turns. Someone drops cloves into a warm jug. The room hums. Your jaw hums, too, but gently now, like a sleepy bee in a window. Girls pluck parsley from a dish and chew on it. A boy rubs his teeth with a twig, then wipes his lips with his sleeve. A granny waves a sprig of mint like a wand. Breath first, she says. Flirting second. You have met that rule all night. Sage, mint, clove. They sit here, too, dressed for a party. A mainstream fact sits at the table with a cup of ale. In old poems and tales, a pretty mouth matters. People praise bright smiles. Some say teeth like pearls. Some laugh about gaps, too. One famous storyteller writes about a lively, gap-toothed wife. Her smile hints at a bold heart and wide roads. You look at faces. You see all kinds. Straight teeth, crooked teeth, baby gaps, grandfather gaps. Each mouth tells its own story. The bride takes a clove and bites it neat. She breathes on her palm and nods. The groom chews sweet anise seeds. He looks very proud of all his decisions. Trays pass with comfits. Tiny seeds in sugar, white as hail, only a few. Sugar is dear. The rich bring it to the table like a show. It is sweet. It is also a doctor, they say. It helps the stomach. It also helps the breath, which allows the eyes to meet and hold. You take one. Clicks between your teeth like a pearl that forgives you. Historians still debate whether people cared more about having white, straight teeth or about having sweet breath and experiencing no pain. Some say looks mattered at court. Others say health and smell mattered most in lanes like this. The truth shifts with the room. You have felt that all night. At the pole, speed counts. In the cloister, calm. At the feast, breath. Plates change. The void, the end of dinner, arrives. A boy pours rosewater over clean hands. Cloths pass. Spiced wine, hippocras, glows in cups. Dishes of ginger and nuts sit like treasure. The lord at the head of the chair wears a tiny pick on a chain. He pulls it out after the meat is cooked. He uses it with small, neat motions. The chain glints, so does status. A silver toothpick says, I can carry a clean mouth on a string. A reed or quill does the same job for the rest of us. Joke one. You try to act lordly with a goose quill. It bends. You whisper, Your Grace, to the quill. It retires in shame. The boy serving wine sees you and almost drops the jug. A lady eats little. She drinks water with mint. She laughs with her lips closed. You wonder if a missing side tooth hides behind her lace. You have learned that most people wear their smiles like clothes. Some loud, some shy, some patched, some news. A crooked smile is still a smile. A warm look makes it bright. The room proves that rule again and again. You see tricks. Beeswax, like the wise woman used, sits in a small pot by the candles. A girl taps a tiny bit over a sharp edge and smooths it with a wet finger. A baker's wife rolls a ball of clean lint and tucks it under a sore gum before the toast. A minstrel rubs his teeth with charcoal and salt, not to hide, but to shine. He grins at a polished spoon and seems pleased with his work. On a bench, a young man with a gap laughs big and free. Another teases him. He taps his teeth with a mug. He says the gap lets the wind in to cool his words. The room laughs kindly. Someone says gap-toothed folk are lucky in love. You remember the old tale. You think luck sits best with the brave. A fringed tidbit tiptoes in behind a curtain. A girl paints a tiny line of soot on her gum where a front tooth is gone. By candlelight, the shadow reads like a tooth from a distance. It is stagecraft, not surgery. It works well enough for a dance. She wipes it away when the candles go out. You file that under theater for the mouth. You slip away before the last dance and wander uphill to a manor hall. Torches flare. Tapestries hang on the walls. Voices rise and fall like birds in a warm roof. At the end of a long board, a spice plate lands. Ginger, cinnamon, comfits. A page carries a silver toothpick set, as if it were a relic. He wears it on a ring at his belt. Beside it hang tweezers and a tiny ear spoon. Grooming lives in metal here. It hangs by silk cords and says, We look after small things. A lady's maid pours a rinse of sage and vinegar for the noblewoman she serves. She warms it first. She adds a drop of rose. The noblewoman swishes, spits into a basin, and dabs her lips with linen. A courtier leans close to speak near her ear. She is ready. All this show is part care, part flirt, part wall between rumor and truth. Bad breath writes quick gossip. Good breath cuts it off at the door. Historians still debate whether the very rich frequently wore fitted false teeth, or if most used simple tricks, such as wires to tie neighbors close, wax caps, careful angles, and closed smiles. A few graves show wires. A few texts hint at carved replacements. Most love songs still praise what the eye can see. A bright laugh, a kind look, and breath that smells like mint, not mutton. The steward strides in and calls for the voidee, the leave-taking sweets. People stand and talk in pairs. A lord toys with a pomander ball and murmurs to a widow with bright eyes. A young knight sucks a clove and checks his reflection in a polished plate. You grin. We are all the same when we hope someone likes us. Joke 2. A jester offers you a clove and whispers, perfect for kissing and for keeping wolves away. You ask if the wolves mind. He says, they prefer anise. He waddles off, pleased with his own science. You step out to a courtyard where servants talk and rest. A laundress rubs her teeth with a bit of clean ash. She says it keeps stains away. A cook chews parsley and laughs at herself. She says garlic makes friends honest about distance. A groom breaks a twig and gives it to a girl he likes. She chews the clean end, then hands it back to him without a word. The moon sees everything, says nothing, Class sits in each mouth, but not the way fancy books think. Rich mouths eat sugar and meat and sip wine. Poor mouths grind grain that carries grit, wearing enamel thin. Rich people can afford mint, honey, and comfits. Poor mouths know willow, salt, and sage by heart. Rich people can wear a silver pick on a chain. Poor mouths keep a birch twig in a pocket. Both mouths want a soft word and a clean kiss. A simple truth leans on the well. People hide their teeth when they must. They fix what they can. They cheer what they cannot fix. A scarf can veil a missing incisor. A mustache can shadow a chip. A hand can cover a laugh. A gaze can do most of the work if the mouth is shy. The body learns 1,000 small dances to step around a gap. You think of your wax cap. You think of the linen splint that hugged your sore tooth. You think of your medal and your thunderstone. None of these makes a perfect smile. They make a kinder night. That is enough for most hearts. You watch the groom and the girl with the twig again. Their smiles are crooked. Their eyes are not. A minstrel sings about love and lists body parts in praise. Hair, eyes, hands. He says laughing mouth. He says sweet breath. He does not say straight line of enamel. He lives in a world where pain is loud and breath is close. You do too. A lady whispers about a count who hit a broken front tooth with a bit of bone tied by wire. It worked at dinner, failed at a hunt. A hawk flew. The bit flew too. The hawk did not return. The rumor did. It has legs. You learn the lesson without the hawk. Wires are rare. They are for show or for a strong need. Tools help. Pride needs its own leash. Joke 3. A scribe nearby says his teeth are like his books. Some missing, some borrowed, and the rest stained with ink. You tell him to rinse with sage and write softer letters. He says he will try both. A corky bit lives in a bowl by the door. Apples studded with cloves. Little pomanders. People roll them in their palms, then share them with a friend on a walk home. Some call them kiss apple. You take one. You breathe in spice. Your jaw feels quiet. Your heart feels soft. You offer the apple to the cat. It declines. Cats do not negotiate with cloves. Historians still debate whether courtly love influenced real customs at tables or only inspired poems. They ask if spices at feasts were about the breath or the show. They weigh lists of kitchen buys against songs. Both smell like cinnamon. Both sit under torchlight. You leave the hall and return to lanes where doors sit low and straw keeps the mud honest. A couple shares a cloak. An older man sits on a step and hums. You pass by and feel your own mouth at rest. The clove does its small work. The wax cap smooths the bite. The splint remembers its job. You will sleep with your head high and your breath clean. As you walk, you touch your metal and feel its calm. You press the thunderstone and feel its cool. You think of the barbers snug and neat, the monk's warm cloth, the fair's drum, and the surgeon's wire. All those rooms cared for pain. These rooms care for breath and pride. Both kinds are needed. Both keep love brave. The cat paces beside you like a chaperone with paws. You tell them that your smile is not perfect. It blinks like it knew that and liked you anyway. You pass the wedding house again. Laughter spills out. A clove sparks in the fire and pops like a tiny star. You keep that sound as you turn toward quieter streets, where a soft bed waits and a slight ache finally yawns. You follow footpaths to the river. Lanterns swing on masts. Tar, salt, and spice lace the air. Sailors load sacks that smell like pepper and warm, dusty air. You lean on a post. Your cat claims a coil of rope and sits like a captain. A barge slides out. You step aboard with traders, scribes, and 2 sleepy geese. The water rocks you like a big, slow cradle. At dawn, you step off in a city of white walls and orange trees. Cordoba. Courtyards breathe water and light. A book market murmurs like a hive. A scholar opens a fat volume. He strokes the pages like a cat. He shows drawings of tools for mouths, hooks, forceps, files. He points at a chapter on teeth. He says, "A wise surgeon here wrote this." He refers to the renowned doctor from this land who authored a set of books that have been used for ages. He described how to pull, how to spare bone, and how to wire a loose tooth. You run a finger over the ink. The tools look like the ones you held behind the wagon. The road is long. The hands are the same. A mainstream fact stands on these pages. In Al-Andalus, a learned surgeon writes about teeth and their care. He draws instruments and explains steps. His book travels far. Later, others copied it in Latin. Barbers learn from it. Surgeons argue with it. The work moves with people and with paper. A trader offers you a twig called miswak. It is pale and smells like pepper and earth. He says many use it to clean teeth before prayer. He shows how to chew the end into a brush. He scrubs with a small smile. His breath smells bright. You try it. The fibers tickle your gums. Your cat watches, as if it is waiting for you to drop it. You do not. You have learned. You sit in a courtyard and taste a clove the trader presses into your hand. He says cloves ride ships from seas far to the east. He says rulers love them. He says lovers love them more. You nod. You have met cloves in many lanes. They are citizens of the world and very busy. You leave by road with a caravan. Bells on camels chime softly. Sand squeaks under feet. The sky is a lid of blue. Night drops like a blanket. You eat dates that taste like warm honey. A man from Cairo joins your fire. He tells you about a hospital with tall doors and a cool hall. He says they treat people with low incomes for free. They give medicine. They wash wounds with clean water and wine. They write notes on tablets that make sense. He says a surgeon there can use a soft wire to tie the jaw to the jaw when a break is severe. He says the pharmacy makes tooth powders with salt, mint, and crushed shells. You close your eyes and picture rows of jars. Historians still argue whether every such hospital gave care to the mouth with the same skill as the hand or the gut. They also mention how common it was to wire teeth in these wards, or if that was rare and done by a select few. The stories sound sure. The records talk less. The truth hides in busy rooms where no one has time to write. At dawn, Cairo shines by the river like a tray set with brass. Markets sing. You buy a pouch of mastic and a small cone of myrrh. A scholar in a dark robe speaks of a renowned physician who wrote a guide to a well-lived life. He advises against shocking teeth with extreme temperature changes, such as hot and cold. He says rinse after meals. He says keep gums strong with salt and sage. The words feel like the monk's voice, but warmer with the sun. A Gujarati merchant rinses with sesame oil and swishes for a slow count. He calls it his morning pull. He says it eases the mouth and wakes the face. You try it. Feels odd and then calm. You spit and rinse with warm water and mint. Your jaw nods like a sleepy judge. Joke 1. A spice seller claims that clove powder stops toothworms and also makes you dance better. You ask if the worm dances too. He says, only until the drum stops. Further east, the map folds. You follow it. Roads turn to paths. Inns become courtyards with wells. You hear talk of a city with great walls and straight streets. Chang'an. Smoke rises like thin silk. A tea stall pours cups that taste like rain made friendly. A healer with ink-black hair touches a spot on your hand between thumb and finger. He presses. Your jaw answers with a tiny sigh. He says this point quiets the face. He shows others near the ear and along the jaw. He warms a stick and circles it near the skin. The heat is soft, feels like summer sun in a small place. You add this to your list of quiet tricks. A simple fact sits in the tea steam. Books here discuss points on the body that correspond to the mouth. Healers press them. They warm them with a coal on a stick. They write recipes for rinses with salt, ginger, and pepper. They chew twigs. They scrape teeth with tiny knives. They use cloth and herbs the way your kitchen healer did, but with new names and a little more math. A maker shows you a brush with bristles tied into a bone handle. He calls it new. He says some use boar hair. He says it dries in the sun after washing. He lifts his chin with pride. You touch the bristles. They are stiff and ready. Historians still debate whether the first actual bristle brush, similar to this one, originated at this time or later. They also argue that this idea is not applicable when it walks west. The story has loose threads. The brush does not care. It works. You taste a tooth powder with salt, ground tea, and mint. It is hot and clean. You roll it on your cloth and rub. Your mouth feels like wind on a hill. A singer with lacquered teeth laughs high. You blink. The black is glossy and not what you expect. A traveler whispers that in islands farther east, some paint teeth black for beauty and for strength. Keeps bugs away. Says you are grown. It is not your taste. It is still smart in its own way. A fringe tidbit rides the road with traders from the south. They tell you of a nut that stains lips and teeth red. Some chew it with lime and pepper. The mix wakes up the mouth and makes time pass easily. It also stains smiles like roses. You tuck that image away and choose your clove. You ride to a port that smells like tides and pepper. Ships sit like sleeping whales. Bales of cinnamon wrap the docks. A clerk lists cargo. Cloves, pepper, ginger, camphor, wax, silk. Each item in the list has touched your teeth in some way. Heat for numbness, spice for breath, oil for sleep, cloth for cleaning. The sea carries cures as if it were a long, blue shop. Joke 2. Your cat sits on a bale of cloves and looks like the new mayor of Breath. You salute. It accepts the title without comment. You think of the pelican's beak and the forceps bite. You think of the key's twist. A smith in a river town shows you a cousin to the pelican with a broader pad. He says a traveler from the west traded it for a saddle. He says it spares the gum better. You show him the linen pad trick. He grins like you handed him a coin. This is how tools move little gifts. Smart angles. Pad in a pocket. Men with ledgers talk about books that ride mules. They carry a chapter on teeth to Italy. They have a map of points for a curious monk. They have a recipe for a powder for barbers with clean hands. You watch papers change tongues like actors change hats. You like this theater. Historians still argue whether cloves became the go-to helper for tooth pain because they truly numb well, or because the trade made them famous and dear. They also indicate whether the idea of bracing a loose tooth with a thread originated from a single book or if it was independently discovered by many. The road does not vote. It just brings another sack of spice. Night comes again. Fires dot the shore. A storyteller lists lands like a string of beads. You taste each bead. Cordoba's ink, Cairo's mint, Chang'an's bristles, island lacquer, desert dates, river wine. You feel how your own pouch has changed. You carry mastic from one coast and a brush idea from another. You take a twig with a new name and a point on your hand that quiets the jaw. Joke 3. A camel sneezes as you pass. You say, "Bless you," and ask if it's a toothache. It stares like a judge and chews without comment. That is a no. A simple truth curls in your lap like a cat. People everywhere hurt the same. They clean, they chew, they press, they pull when they must. They make tools kinder. They mix faith, heat, and herbs. They write when they have time. They teach by hand when they can. Your jaw learns this lesson, sits easily. You step off the boat and back into your own lanes as if the road folded and set you down. The same moon waits, the same baker snores. The same cat escorts you with the same hightail. Your metal rests warm. Your wax cap still holds. Your breath smells like mint and smoke from fires far away. You carry more than you left with. You always do when you listen to travelers. You pass the striped pole. The torches sleep. The lint in your sleeve feels like a small flag for all the rooms you have met. The fair, the cloister, the tent, the kitchen, the hall, the guild, the port. One more lane leads toward dawn. Your steps are slow. Your jaw is quiet like a field before the sun comes back. The road turns toward a shop where iron waits. You know your answer now. You will choose soon, with all these voices in your pocket and a steady hand on your own door. Dawn brushes the roofline with milk and pewter. Smoke lifts straight up. The streets hold their breath. You walk to the shop where iron waits. The striped pole leans in shadow. A shutter creaks. The barber opens his door. He yawns, grins, and waves you in like family. Inside, the bench is clean. Jars line the shelf like soldiers at rest. The brazier glows low. A new face waits by the table. A young apprentice with ink on his fingers. He holds a thin book with tiny woodcuts. He turned the pages so much that the paper felt soft. The drawings show tools you know. The pelican, forceps, a key that looks shy. Little arrows show angles. Small notes whisper, not low, soft grip, pad here. A mainstream fact stands on that page. The press now stamps books fast. Words and pictures spread like bread smells in a lane. A surgeon in France wrote a great book. So did others. They drew beaks, pads, and wires. They said, spare bone, spare gum, pack with lint, wash with wine. The press pushed their voices from town to town. Barbers read. Surgeons argued. Apprentices learned to do snug and neat by the book and by the hand. The barber sets a pig jaw on the board. The apprentice finds his angle. He tucks a fold of linen under the bolster. He places the claw. He does not lever. He only shows the move. He breathes. He smiles when his wrist remembers the lesson. He is a little proud. He is not too proud. That is good. He lifts a roll of iron. New shapes blink. The old pelican sits by a cousin with a broader pad. A pair of forceps has a slimmer beak and a better bite. Little grooves on the handle keep sweat honest. Ill skin wraps one grip. Red thread ties the end. You remember that. You remember the metal tied near the screw. It shines. The saint nods from a loop of leather. Joke 1. The barber taps the notches on a handle and says, "My hands are lazy." The metal reminds them to behave. You say you will notch your jaw. He says, "Cheaper to notch the iron." He shows a tiny wedge of boxwood. He says it props teeth when a neighbor grabs at neighbors. He shows a new file with a curve that spares gums. He shows a spoon with a hole in the bowl. It scoops small shards without the cloth catching. He calls it his kind spoon. You call it smart. On a peg, a tooth powder hangs in a paper cone stamped with a seal. The cone reads sage and salt. Another reads mint and chalk. A third reads charcoal fine. Printed words, honest words. You think of the fair's blue jar with cure for all, and smile. This feels better, clear, simple, true. He points to a broom by the door. He says the guild now checks corners. He says the watch looks at cloth as much as a coin. He thinks he can hang the bowl outside only when a licensed hand sits inside. The hall in your mind nods. Rules have legs now. They walk to shops at dawn. A list sits by the mirror. It holds fees, shave, lance, pull, threads to tie, wax caps, rinses. The prices do not leap like fish. They sit like stones. The barber grumbles that the city takes a bite. He also says he sleeps well. He says he still sings off-key. He says pain still runs from bad music. The apprentice opens his book to a page with a small diagram. Teeth sit like a neat fence. Arrows show how to rock front to back, not twist wildly. He reads a line about wiring a loose tooth to a neighbor for a week. He reads a line about cutting swelling to let bad water out. He does not read about worms. That, now, is a joke the barber tells to make children giggle before he counts to 3. Historians still argue whether faith in the toothworm fades fast in towns like this, or if it lingers long, hidden under smoke and charms. They also say that books change hands faster than habits change minds. You have seen both. Smoke still curls, but also clean lint piles high. A fringed tidbit peeks from a basket. A string of tiny teeth with knots between them. Not proofs for a door. Baby teeth saved like stars. A mother bought the string to nail near a beam for luck. She says a new tooth grows straight when the old one hangs high. The barber shrugs. He says luck and lint have coffee sometimes. He lets luck keep its chair. He shows a little brush someone brought from far roads. Boar bristles tied in a sliver of bone. It looks bold and prickly. He says a merchant swears it is the future. He says a twig works fine. He says he will not argue with the future if it buys powder. You think of the miswak. You think of bristles that dry in the sun. You think of cloth on a finger. You decide tools matter less than the hands that use them. You still enjoy the look of the little brush. It looks like a hedgehog with a job. A bell rings in a tower you know by heart. The city blinks awake. A woman ducks in with a sore mouth and a laugh ready. She grips the pole. She lets the barber look. He says not today. He makes a cap of wax with a dot of clove. He smooths it with a wet finger. He says rinse with sage and salt. He says sleep high. He says come back if the drum grows wild. She thanks him and leaves with her mouth saved from a storm. Joke 2. The apprentice asks if the saint gives bulk discounts. The barber says, only if you light a candle the size of a loaf. The apprentice glances at your metal. He nods to it like a fellow student. You hold your jaw and test the ache. Hums, not bangs. The wax cap from the wise woman still sits smooth. The splint still hugs. Your rinse did its job. You taste mint. You taste sleep. The barber looks at your face. He says he remembers you from last night. He says you have the look of someone who has walked many rooms and come back with a sense. You admit you also came back with a stone, a medal, a powder, and 6 jokes. He approves of all 6. He sets a pelican on the board. He looks at you without a push. He says, we can. Or we can wait a day and see. He says the book and the hand both say patience has power. He says tools improve. He says his hands improve. He says fear improves too when it lives in company. He is right. He shows you a page that the press made new. It lists saints' days, good seasons for bleeding, bad dates to avoid pulls, and a note. Wash hands, wash tools, wash cloth. The note has no saint. It makes sense. You like that a lot. He points to a little printed charm on the wall. Saint Apollonia stands with her tongs. Someone would cut her face kindly. The apprentice touches the print before he lifts the pelican. Not magic, habit, the kind that makes hands steady. A simple truth sits on the table between you. This work was once a custom found in markets, kitchens, and fairs. Now it is a craft that can be found in books, guilds, and shops with posted fees. The work is still small. The rooms are still bright with torches, not lamps with glass. But the path from pain to quiet is steadier than it was. Historians still argue whether the moment the craft becomes its own trade occurs now or in the future. They say whether the first dentist sign outside a door belongs to a barber who learned from a monk, or to a reader of new books who never shaved a beard. You smile. You think the answer is yes to both. Joke 3. The cat you know walks in and jumps on the stool. It sits like a prince and opens its mouth in a wide yawn. The apprentice offers to pull the cat's bad tooth. The cat blinks and leaves. You clap, the barber bows. You thank them and step back to the door. The street is pink at the edges. Bread breathes from an oven. A bell rings the hour. You touch your metal. You feel the thunderstone. You tuck your cone of powder deeper in your pouch. You promise your jaw this. You will keep it clean. You will rinse. You will sleep high. You will come back if the drum forgets its manners. The barber salutes with his cloth. The apprentice salutes with his book. The saint in the print looks calm. You walk into the morning with a mouth that feels sore. You carry the road behind you like a soft rope. You have hands, herbs, heat, and humor. You take the press's neat voice, and the monk's hum, and the fair's drum, and the guild's rules, and the surgeon's wire, and the kitchen's warm mash. Custom turned to craft in the hours between bells. You were there for it. That is a good night's work. Let the streets grow quiet now, and let the light slip from pearl to silver and then to that gentle gold you know so well, the kind that warms your eyelids from the outside and leaves your head feeling hollow in a good way, like a bell that has rung and now rests in its own calm metal. You ease your shoulders down, you unclench your jaw just a touch more, and you feel how each small thing you learned tonight stacks into a soft wall between you and worry. The barber's laugh fades to a low echo, the monk's mortar thumps become a slow heartbeat under the floorboards, and even the fair's drum turns distant, like thunder that has decided to walk home. Your breath comes in and goes out, smooth and round, and the little ache that traveled with you learns the new rule you set. Quiet is the language here, and everything speaks it now. If your mind picks up a tool and turns it over, pelican, forceps, a ribbon of clean lint, let it set the iron down and keep only the feeling of firm hands and kind voices, because that is the part that matters when your head sinks into a pillow and the night folds its corners in. Think of warm cloth on skin, sage steam on the air, and a candle whose flame doesn't flicker anymore, because the room has closed its windows to the wind and opened them to rest instead. In a moment you will close your eyes, and the lane will still be there if you need it, but it will wait outside the door like a patient friend. The last thing you will feel is a slight touch at your sleeve, perhaps the weight of a calm metal, a cat deciding you are safe, and then the door clicks softly and the house and your head and your mouth all agree to sleep.